And almost set. Okay, we're live. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a nice freezing day, yet sunny here on the Eastern Seaboard. And boy, we got a fun half-hour video to cover. I don't know a thing about the video we're doing. I was recommended by LiteratureDevil, and he says, "Hey, we got to do this." I'm like, "Great, let's do it. What is it?" And it's a review of the Joker movie, which is awesome because I heard it's getting great reviews. And I haven't seen it. So we're going to have more of my input's going to be related to the critic or me criticizing the critic. I do that sometimes on my channel. This is a good opportunity to go back to that tradition, and hopefully we'll get some actual content related criticisms from Literature Devil, who's actually seen the movie.
Mhm.
And
I-
yeah, I think we're going to have a good balance between our input here because again, I don't know this person. I don't know the movie. I'm being completely third party here. I'm just sort of a fly on the wall, and I will provide input when necessary.
yeah, the
So,
thing is, I recommend. I haven't seen this video either. I just know it by reputation because this is the video that launched 1,000 White Knights and against Mahler, and this is the video that got him in trouble with everyone, every weirdo who stalks the internet. This is what got him in trouble with them. So I said, well, maybe this video has something in here, so might as well cover it. So I'm going into this blind also. I just know that this is a video that really got Mahler in some hot water with pretty much every weirdo ever. And but I have seen the Joker, so I do like it. I do like the Joker. I think personally is a fantastic movie, but it's probably mainly for my, my own personal tastes and not an objective standpoint. But I do recommend it to everyone, nonetheless.
yeah, I will eventually watch it this year when I have time. There's a lot going on, especially during the winter and the Christmas months, festivals, work, family, friends, etc. But you know what? I've heard great things, so I will get around to it. Let's get started. We're going to be here for at least 2 hours, so let's sit right back.
So I saw Joker and I was so relieved and remember how excited it made me feel. It's like an anime music video, like it's its own art. You're just like, nice.
I have jumped ahead. My apologies. I don't know.
5 minutes in, I think this is actually where she kind of starts anyway. But we could go to the beginning. But
Yeah,
one thing I noticed, why do all these people who hate the Joker have to put in anime? Like Bob Chipman goes from Joker to Vegeta, and she's just going from, oh yeah, the Joker trailer, anime. Do they know? Did they know anything else? Like, can we just appreciate Western works for themselves?
it is interesting about how this particular movie seems to be one of those smaller budgeted films, comparatively speaking, to the rest of the
Oh yeah,
DC universe, and it's
oh yeah,
done well. So that's kind of funny. Whereas Marvel is the bigger, huge budget films, and DC seems to be very good at the smaller ones. And if they stick with that sort of indie, small budget, no name sort of actor idea, Joaquin's not a no name, but that sort of mentality, they could appeal to the film crowd as well as the comic book crowd who appreciates those small little character vignette movies that you'd like to learn about. Joker has always been a very ambiguous character in the comics, aside from Frank Miller stuff, and he's always been this super genius that is just crazy, and no one knows why, and it's all a mystery. So to give him a backstory is always interesting, and you have to be careful with the source material. Same with Batwoman, same with all the other characters, the Riddler, etc. You have to know how to do it, and I think that's why they're holding off on Batman actually having a Batman series because he's such a moneymaker. And as
yeah.
soon as you bring him to, was it the silver screen? Is that TV or is it the gold? I can't remember how that works.
I think TV is a silver.
Silver screen?
I
Yeah,
think
I don't know the
something.
term for that. But once they bring Batman to the television, like they're doing with, apparently Superman's getting its own show again, Superman and Lois. So that is going to be a big ball of wax. Not a big ball of yarn, a big ball of wax. So with Batman, you got to be super duper careful. And when you have the show called The Batwoman stealing all of Batman's stuff, it's like, oh God,
Yeah, that was
no.
a that's your typical tradition of these NPC weirdos. They go in and they can't just they're not satisfied with just making a show. They have to disrespect the source material, and they have to disrespect the main demographic that watches them, the
Yeah.
old fans.
It's really tough to be given a franchise and make it work in a different universe because people are going to go, nope, nope, that's wrong. And they're going to have the actual people who don't care, who are like, well, is it entertaining? Do I like it? Yada yada. So you have to appeal to so many people. You're not genre blending. You're demographic blending. You have to like, okay, I got to help this person and that person. Yet it's really tough to do. So to criticize the movie is fine. Like I'm going to probably agree with a lot what she has to say just because it's a critic and she's taking things apart. I like that. But we'll try to evaluate the substance of her words.
So, I saw Joker and I was so relieved. I've had so little to say about proper clickbaity popular films that I was actually in the middle of drafting a video about the Dog's Purpose trilogy. Anyway, I didn't think it was very good. I mean, actually, I guess it was sort of good. I mean, there are so many movies I like less than this. There's such a heavenly glow coming off my porg. I'm gonna move the camera a little bit.
Is it just me or is she using a soft lens or a lot of lighting? Because everything's white, like everything.
She's really bright. I mean, it was kind of hard for me to watch her because she's really, really bright.
It's like there's a spotlight on her whole room. And I'm like, is this normal? Like, I don't really do video, so I'm like, I guess.
I'm trying to be more fair about my rating scale, which admittedly does just consist.
Also, how come she did she just call the Joker clickbaity? How is the Joker clickbaity? It's just called Joker.
It's popular, so maybe she means like everyone was talking about it last month.
It is popular. The only reason why it's clickbaity is because the media went insane over it. It didn't. The product itself was not clickbaity.
I'm laughing over the super chat that Oren Albert Meisel just sent me because he's using the bat splainers, and that was a joke from. That's an inside joke from Batwoman episode 4. And it's
bat splainer.
It's so,
did they actually say that?
She says bat splainer, and I'm like,
oh no. Oh, that's so cringy. Why would you do that?
It is so bad. And you're like, oh God, no. So the show goes from cringy to less cringe than, there's a cringe scale. It's gone back up it. So,
bat splainers.
Yeah. So
they just never learn, do they? They never learn. It's just going to fail forever.
It's like watching Xena Warrior Princess. If they went, you know what? Let's just make this a show about lesbians. What do you think? Let's keep all the jumps and all the ridiculous ricochets and magic science. Let's just do that. It's like, but prime time on a Sunday when they're watching football? Yeah, do it. It's like, okay.
A little bit. I'm trying to be more fair about my rating scale, which admittedly does just consist of good and bad. So anyway, since this was entertaining, I would like to designate it as good kind of, but I'd like to talk about it a little more. The setting, the time period, that's all really cool.
I'm really glad that she expanded her horizon from good and bad to having a third option, which is good kind of.
I thought she said she didn't like the show.
Yeah, she didn't. She said she didn't like it.
The title is I Didn't Like Joker. But it's good kind of. Okay, whatever.
I thought she's making clickbaity. Because her title is I didn't like the Joker, but in reality, it's good kind of.
So
I talk about clickbaity.
To me, that's a 51%, meaning above, the threshold. So a little bit of lying, a little bit of exaggeration. Who knows? We'll give her that. People exaggerate. It happens.
Finally, someone is acknowledging that the old-timey, show-tune, dancing, clown man aesthetic just is kind of cool. But the story didn't really, do anything. And back up. Before you get really angry, you'll still get angry. I'm not saying, it's boring. Where's Batman? That's not my criticism at all. This whole movie kind of reads as one of those productions that, switch direct.
This is a film critic? What the hell? She's rambling.
He's using technical terms like cool and story was not that good. And
I would never go, well, okay, I do hot takes, but I wouldn't film myself going, hey, I like it, but I kind of don't. It's kind of like this. It's like, what are you saying? Give me a straight answer.
And the setting was really cool, though. She's right about that.
Okay.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that 1 point. They did it really well.
Halfway through and they didn't get to complete their vision, which is not what it is at all. So that's bad. It has a pretty compelling.
What are you talking about? Not completing the vision. I know she just said that that's not what reality is, but how did it come off that way? It was very cohesive. It was cohesive as they wanted it to be. Okay, it didn't seem like it was disjointed. It seemed like it was a proper film set from the get-go all the way to the end. Like the creators knew what they were doing every step of the way. And I'm trying not to go step into spoiler territory here, but it was really well done. and to the fact that it goes into the straight line at the beginning. You kind of feel like you know everything in the beginning of the Joker movie, and then it starts uh, jumping off into different realities, and so you have to see: did things actually happen? Did they not actually happen the way they happened, or the way you saw it happen? What's actually going on here? So it's kind of up to you. The crazier he gets, or the more disjointed from reality the film seems to take him. So it's hard to do that properly, which I believe they did when you have people like when you have something like the Last Jedi, when Last Jedi connected to the Force Awakens, two different directors. To know this wasn't disjointed unpurposefully. It was a whole product, and it was made exactly like they wanted it to make it. I'm just not sure she's getting the point or not, because I
It's
don't see how they would come off that way.
it's possible people could interpret a movie like this in a variety of ways depending on your knowledge of cinema. So, especially if you're a fan or know any of the Joker mythos or the various versions therein. I'm not sure if she's that kind of comic book geek, but you can have different interpretations. That's fine. It's a movie. You're allowed to.
Setup. You like Arthur at the beginning. The things that make his life sad are generally pretty believable. But then the world around him just becomes so comically mean in such an over-the-top way. Any of these weird, sad incidents on their own, you'd kind of be like, okay, but they pile up so much that it just becomes absurd. A good example is the scene where his social worker tells him that he's no longer going to be able to receive therapy or check-ins or whatever those were supposed to be, or medication, because funding has been cut from the program. She tells him this, and so okay. But then unprompted, she's like, they don't care about people like you or people like me, which was kind of what the implication had been, but I guess the director didn't trust us to understand what was going on. And I assume that second half, the or people like me, was to try to kind of clumsily justify why she would volunteer this kind of angry statement. We're meant to understand her frustration that she can't help people at her job the way she wants to. But this line doesn't work because in all of their previous meetings, she's never like connected with Arthur. In fact, she barely listens to him, which is portrayed as part of the problem. Most of the time when he's talking and it cuts to her, she's just kind of looking at him in like bemusement or boredom. So why now would she say something as
Okay,
It's not amusement or boredom. It's actually hard concern.
yeah,
It's concern.
I've studied psychology. I've met therapists. I met clinical psychologists. I met psychiatrists. They are professionals. They do not get emotionally involved in who they're talking to because they see a patient and an individual problem with a unique solution. So a psychiatrist will see this as a organic or a medical problem, so they can prescribe drugs. A psychologist could see it as a therapeutic version. It could have a multi-layered aspect to it. So there's different approaches, but they're not all this weird, oh, are you okay? Like there's not this big
Yeah.
emotional response. They're professionals. If they were
And
if they were emotional all the time with every single person, it would be a
it'd be a nightmare
riot.
for them. It would be a nightmare. They couldn't. How could you handle that?
Yeah, you have to be disconnected. You have to be professional. You have to look at it in a logical fashion and try to figure out what's going on. It doesn't mean you're not empathetic. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're
And
yeah.
the thing about Arthur Fleck, the thing about Arthur Fleck in this movie is that he's clearly crazy. I mean, he's clearly he's not normal. That he comes off as not normal immediately. And I forgot if it's the first meeting or the second meeting. I think it's the first, if I remember correctly. I think it might be the first, but it might also be the second. I'm not really sure. But he comes in with a journal because he was told to keep a journal and to just to keep his thoughts in check and everything. But when she opens the journal, it's filled with these unhinged drawings and pictures and words because he wants to be a comic, and it's filled with jokes like the famous one that's in the trailer. That the one that says the worst part about mental illness is that people expect you to behave like you don't have it or something like that. So it's filled with things like that and depictions of weird violence and stuff like that. So that's why she has that stone face, because she knows she's dealing with someone who is what she believes to be mentally disturbed, and he does have some sort of illness. He even has a card that explains why he's laughing hysterically for no reason at all to people.
Yeah,
So there's a reason why she's like this.
again, I not seeing the movie, but in general, how therapists operate. whether it's private practice or public, they are professionals and they cannot get involved in every single person. And if they do get involved, it's always to be a professional, even outside of the room. So it's like, I'm going to help you get a job. I'm going to help you do this because I think I can do that for you. Not because they have an emotional investment or they want to say things. It's the same way if you get training for like talking on the phone, like say you'd be a tech support guy or you're in customer care or you're in HR. Yeah, you could have different tone when you speak to someone, but it's always reassuring. It's always positive. It's affirming that you can help someone in some fashion without being, I'm going to help you. It's like, no. You're professional. You're serious. You're disconnected, but you're also involved. It's a very fine line. I agree, but I don't get this idea where you have to be emotional to help people in a therapeutic or mental health scenario.
Mm-hmm.
On the nose and inflammatory is this to this brooding, unstable man who's about to be taken off his meds. It just feels clumsy and feels like it lowers the IQ of the whole movie that they have to tell you this in such certain terms. It also makes...
See, that's interesting. When I say, this scene makes me feel stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, there's lots of different therapies out there. There's lots of different therapists. There's lots of different techniques. You would really have to know what drugs he was on, what's happening to him in his life. That the therapist would be like completely the wrong person for the job, or, I don't know, their DSM-3 or DSM-4 is out of print or something, and they're looking at the wrong page. Like, there has to be something that the audience would know and go, okay, yeah, this is completely unbelievable. Like it would have to be there. If it's not, then it's just, well, they're doing their job. They're a government worker.
Makes her a very weird character. We can't show her being very sympathetic to Arthur or connecting with him or really helping him, because in order for the thesis statement of this movie to work, I guess everyone in every facet of Arthur's life has to be dismissive of him or wrong him in some way. Another good example is at the very beginning, he's hired out from his clown talent agency to go hold a sign at a store's closeout sale. There's already a lot to unpack here. I'll be generous and skip right over clown talent agency. I'm not a child of the 80s, and for all I know, clowns really did have such a heyday back then that it justified operating clown talent agencies. I don't know. But if I may indulge in a brief, very nitpicky sidebar, why did the sign holder have to be a clown? Couldn't it just be any temp worker? If the job is only to hold a sign and the purpose of the clown costume is just to generate attention to the person holding the sign, then wouldn't just an underqualified non-clown temp worker get you much better bang for your buck, especially if you're trying to save money because your store is going out of business?
Okay, she is trying to explain the efficacy of dressing up as anything, especially a clown, to hold the sign.
Well, in the movie, Arthur Fleck is a professional clown, more or less. He's a clown talent agency, and their job is to get you work, because that's the only job that Arthur Fleck can actually do, is be this clown. And because he can't fit into normal society, because he's to our perspective at that point, he's mentally ill. And at that point, it's their job to get him a job as a clown. So why not have a clown? I mean, he's just looking for a guy to spin a sign. The clown is... See, back then, clowns, as far as I've been explained to, they would actually have talents. Like, they actually are trained to be clowns. Like, they can do various, like, someone can do magic tricks, someone can do dances and have routines and stuff like that. So if you're trying to bring in business as a last resort, then why not get a clown, especially if you can get a good deal on getting a clown, because Arthur could probably spin a sign better than a regular person. And he's by implication, he's loaded with more talents and tricks than the average guy.
Yeah,
that's why he's a clown.
This is not a huge argument. The agencies like this exist, whether you want someone dressed up as a bunny or whatever. They're out there, guys. People. But
this is apparently a big thing,
Well, I don't know how big it is, but it's a thing. And whether it's for birthday parties or actual circus performances, they're out there. So it's not impossible. It's a little far-fetched, I admit, because I haven't seen a clown in a long time, but the 80s was a very strange time. So lots of weird movies and music and cool stuff happening all the time in the 80s.
Does nowhere in this city rent clown costumes to non-clowns? And does this store owner not have like an unemployed nephew he could recruit for this task? But I digress. Arthur is holding this sign and he gets mugged by some hooligans. And to add insult to injury, they take his sign and they break it. And then Arthur, like probably a full week later, gets yelled at by his boss because the store owner wants his sign back. What, your going out of business sign? Isn't a sign like that by its very nature
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going out of business, you kind of need that sign back. You don't have enough money, presumably, to buy a new one. And the sign was broken over Arthur's face by the hooligans. And
Yeah, it's strange that a property owner selling his last stuff would want to keep inventory of all his property.
yeah,
Seems kind of natural to me. I don't know.
I don't know why this is such a big deal.
Well, yeah, she's making a mountain here, but it's fine. You can do that. You can nitpick.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
can do
mind.
that.
It's
This is an
just
odd thing to look at because I mean, the scene makes sense to me. Like, why not have a one of these professional clowns try to get you more business because that's kind of their job. They're better at doing this than your average person.
yeah. When I go downtown Toronto, I see a bunch of people holding signs on street corners. They're not doing anything fancy, but that's because it's a busy street corner. You don't want to bang into anyone. And I remember seeing the trailer where he's like spinning it and dancing. Like that's pretty involved.
Yeah,
So
and it's a special sign made for spinning, if I remember correctly. So it had that little turn on it, like a little. It can spin around. It was made to do that. So it's not your average sign either.
right. So I
Also,
guess
also,
I guess
sorry.
she just wants to know how much was he making an hour to explain
Well,
why
not
this is a.
much.
Yeah, it couldn't have been that much. I mean, but people as clowns, they do it because they need to. Not.
Yeah, especially Arthur Fleck.
Yeah.
That's the only job he can. Yes, pretty much the only job he can do.
Right.
And that scene was basically also to highlight to the audience because it happens in the very beginning, pretty much in the very beginning, and it happens to show the audience how bad it is out there. That it's not a nice town. It's not a town that goes easy on people, especially if they're weak, like Arthur Fleck is in the beginning. So it's a town that just hammers on you. That was the message it came across to me, because it happens to so many other people. His mom, other people that are around him. Another guy just kind of hands him a gun because he says, you need it out there. It's crazy. That's where that line comes from. Is it me or is it getting crazier out there? It helps highlight that from the very beginning, which is to me excellent writing.
you only need for a limited amount of time. Anyway, I'm not auditioning for CinemaSins here, and I'm not counting that as like a real big strike against the movie. I just thought it was kind of funny. My beef is very unsurprising. It's the same as it always is. I don't like when movies carry themselves like they're very clever and like they have big themes and then fail to follow through and actually have well-developed themes. I was really
The themes. Oh no, what are we gonna do? It doesn't have the good themes. I don't know what the theme is in the movie, but that's all secondary to understanding what a movie is good or bad, meaning it's built properly, it has proper setup, execution. A theme is like a cherry on top. It's nice to have, it's not essential.
I mean, the very nature of the movie. It's not a straight arrow. It's not meant to be a straight arrow. It's supposed to be ambiguous as to whether or not you're left with sort of a vague transition of the Joker. When Arthur Fleck turns into the Joker, it goes into, well, did this happen? Did this not happen? What exactly happened? What didn't? And you kind of know what things kind of happen on a certain level, but there's other things that, well, it might have been his imagination, it might have been his fantasy, because he does have confirmed fantasies of things that he thought happened but actually didn't. So it is left ambiguous as to what actually happened and what didn't. And these themes are carried out through that sort of that that vague instance, and everything else that surrounds his quote unquote mental illness. Because in the movie, he might not actually have mental illness. It might be something else. We don't know. It might be his true self coming out, trying to break through the mask that is Arthur Fleck. We don't know exactly. We don't know exactly what's going on. That's the beauty of the Joker movie, and that's one of the themes. That's a theme I thought was carried out perfectly. Is that you don't know who you are, and sometimes when the person you're acting as is not who you are, even if you think it is, even if you think the person that you portray on the outside is the person you think you are, it might not be. Now, it might be a mystery to you, might be even a secret to yourself who you actually are. That's why you have those other movies, like the war movies, that kind of break the main character of who they thought they were, and when they're tossed into a war situation, their true nature comes out. Are they vicious? Are they kind? Are they helpful? Or are they selfish? It calls on that same theme as those war movies or those disaster movies or those post-apocalyptic movies. Except it's done in a setting like the Joker, the setting of Gotham City, and with a character like Arthur Fleck, who may or may not be mentally ill.
That sounds great. I'm just happy that she's not talking about time travel and female genitals. I think that's my standard. You know, if you're not seeing sex at every scene or
Joker having 20 wombs in
the birth canal. Yeah, it's like, okay, we're good. I accept your criticism.
I wonder how many wombs the Joker has.
Oh no.
Pretty disappointed because I was actually pretty excited going in. The premise I was here for, the trailers I really liked. The trailers were very good. Can we just acknowledge that? This movie had 2 really solid trailers. Fortunately, I'm able to compartmentalize, and when this happens, I can still go back and just enjoy a good trailer. Even if I know that the movie didn't turn out being that good, I could just go back and watch the trailer and remember how excited it made me feel. It's like
that's what I do with Suicide Squad. It's like, wow, what a great trailer. I want to see that
trailer
movie.
was awesome. Yeah, that trailer was fantastic.
Yeah.
Don't watch the movie though.
an anime music video, it's its own art. You're just like, nice trailer. That's very sad. If you haven't seen it and for some reason you're watching this video, I assume everyone that clicked it because they like the movie and they like to feel anger for some reason. Anyway, on the off chance that you haven't seen it, let me break this down very quickly. Remember in the trailer they had all these compelling shots of the Joker dancing in a grandiose fashion and they're playing a Bing Crosby song or something. I'm 90% sure it's not Bing Crosby. Don't get on my case about this. Anyway, you see those in the trailer and you get kind of hype because it feels like this kind of bombastic scene, maybe a emotional height for the Joker or a culmination of a lot of things that lead to him being on this staircase or backstage of this show and doing a grand little dance. You kind of assume it's not triumphant given the overall tone of the movie, but that it's at least going to be some kind of cool standout scene. But the truth is,
okay, marketing lies, we get it.
The Joker isn't dancing in an interesting moment as part of a bigger scene. He dances at several points in the movie actually in various settings, and each time he does it,
yeah, we saw that. Especially, you know what? I'm gonna let her finish her point. I'll get into this because this is actually an important part of the movie overall.
There isn't really a build-up to it. There's an unrelated scene that somehow indicates his descent into madness, and then cut away to a different scene wherein he is dancing in front of a mirror or on a staircase or backstage of the talk show, and you're like, oh, and it's slow motion. It doesn't have fun show tuney music the way it does in the trailer. It just has very somber strings. And each of these scenes is really sort of interchangeable with the other ones like it. I'm very
yeah. Do you know why that happened? Did you pay attention to why every time he dances in the movie, one of the first times he dances in the movie is when he's dancing with his gun, and you come to find out, and I'm not alone on this. Okay, as much as you might hate Matt Pett or whatever, Film Theory actually he actually caught on to this too, is that his dancing represents freedom because Arthur Fleck is a mask. Arthur Fleck is the, I don't know, if you watch American Psycho, Patrick Bateman has that line when he's in the car, if you watch the movie, where his wife, or no, his fiance asks him, why do you keep doing this job? You don't even like it, or something like that. And he says, because I want to fit in. That's the same mentality that Arthur Fleck has, that he wants to fit in. That's why he has the job. That's why he's taking care of his mother. That's why he tries to conform with the society, because he wants to fit in. He wants nothing more than to fit in. And every time he dances, it takes place in a scene or an instance where he's free. The first time where he holds a gun, he's pointing it out. He's pointing it around. He feels power for the first time in his life. He feels in control. He's free. He starts dancing with a gun. And the second time he dances is after I don't know. I don't want to spoil it, but after a big incident happens that he himself portrayed, he himself conducted, and it was a move of dominance. And he ran to the bathroom. That's why he dances in the bathroom. He's he feels free, and it's slow. And film theory does an excellent description of this, that it's slow. His first dances are slow, careful, and somber, just like she says, because he's just breaking out of it. It's like a newborn, a newborn mentality coming out. You're just trying something new. And then at the end, when he's dancing on those stairs, it's so triumphant because at that point, Arthur has thrown off all his inhibitions. He's completely cast off the mask of Arthur Fleck, and he's completely 100% free now that he has embraced the identity of the Joker. So that's the reason why the Joker dances. It's very important to his character because it goes from I'm trapped to I'm free. And I just went on a rant there, but that's what that means. Okay, that's what those dances represent in the movie. You can see that. I mean, it's clear to me.
I think we all know how marketing works for trailers, that the whole point of the trailer is to get you to buy the ticket. And they will slice up any audio with any visual to make it work. Say, wow, that looks cool. And then when you get the finished product, hey, it's not the same as the trailer. Well, too bad. I mean, you're in the seat. They got you. So marketing is there to lie. Look at any Marvel movie. There's all sorts of stuff. Even Waititi's Ragnarok. I remember the scene when Thor comes crashing down onto the Rainbow Bridge. He has both of his eyes. Guess what happens in the scene in the movie? He's already lost one of his eyes.
Yeah, he loses. They did that on purpose too.
Right.
They gave him the two eyes for that scene, so
because it would have been a spoiler. But I mean, it's still lying to you. But that's the point. Marketing is there to make it more attractive within 20 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever the trailer is, and get you in the seat. So you can't really complain. Oh, I was cheated. It's like, yeah, that's what marketing is.
And the thing is about the Joker, when he's dancing on the stairs, it is triumphant. It's triumphant in the trailer. It's a triumphant moment in the movie. Like, I don't want to go into spoilers, like I said, but it's a very triumphant part of the movie. Like it's not traditionally triumphant. Like he didn't just accomplish a big physical task, but it is a very, very important part of the movie. It's a very, very distinct and important scene in the movie because that is it is a characteristic triumph. It's a triumph for the Arthur Fleck character. So yeah, it is triumphant.
Boring character studies, but it didn't feel slow and boring because it was intimate or because it was taking its time to really develop the character. It felt like it was slow and boring because Todd Phillips had like a couple ideas for good scenes and then just repeated them a lot. Like he was trying to pad the movie. Sad thing happens to Arthur. Shot of Arthur in a dim room, smoking and looking seriously at a wall. Shot of Arthur dancing in slow-mo, but you play violin music over it. Also, a scene of a man dancing doesn't automatically become poignant just because you slow it down and put spooky violins over it, especially when you do it more than once. And by the third or fourth time, it starts to just feel tiresome, like this could have been a half-hour movie for how little ground it covers. Okay, hold up, before I go farther, let me just break down what I liked really quickly. They have a couple nods.
See, to me, that sounds like a theme. It's a repetitive motif in the movie.
Wow, this take is awful. Have you ever seen movies before other than Marvel movies and blockbuster popcorn munchers? What are you talking about? What is this? Yeah, it's a theme. That's what you call a theme. Okay, it's a repetitive thing. In the movie, like I said, it starts off slow, and the freer he gets, the more comfortable he becomes with the identity of the Joker. The more erratic and more joyful the dance becomes. And it's not just sad thing happens to Arthur, sad thing happens to Arthur. It's a buildup. It's a huge buildup. There's so many things happening to Arthur that build up to major themes. There's the themes of identity, the themes of freedom, and the themes of finding your true self, the themes of what is your past real, is your future real, what is actually important to you. I mean, there's so many things going on in this movie that are actually built up. You can see them intentionally built up. So it's not just we're going to add in a scene where he's sad. It's a scene where his dreams are crushed, or it's a scene where his life is going into disarray. Things he thought were true are actually not. There's so many things going on, and it's very easy to see that these are purposefully done to create buildup and buildup of themes, buildup of other elements that they wanted to portray to the audience. And I mean, it's not something you have to look in deeply to. It's kind of right there.
So it sounds like she mostly likes it, but there's all these things she doesn't like. So it's kind of she's on the fence, I think, of her appreciation of the movie, even though she said she
She's
likes
not
it.
watching movies correctly. Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh no. We
Watch them
become the
better.
thing we hate.
To the famous Joker story, I think this was all in The Killing Joke, where he says that anyone can go crazy if they just have one comically, exaggeratedly, monumentally bad day. They even have Arthur.
Okay.
That's not what he says, by the way.
It's
Joke.
yeah, we get what she's trying to say though. I
He's
understand.
just trying to put things down to make them seem less important. Or trying to make fun of them or whatever. But in the comic book, The Killing Joke, he says that all it takes is one bad day, and the difference between you and me is one bad day, and that's kind of what happens in. There's a lot of Killing Joke themes in this movie, and that's what I'll say for
Yeah,
it.
I got what she was trying to say, but she
Yeah.
exaggerated. Again, I don't mind exaggeration because you interpret things that way. But yeah, I read the book. It's a good book. It makes sense, and I understand where she was coming from. And if she wants to interpret that, again, she can interpret a book that way as well. Is it accurate? Not so much, but it's still the truth. We'll give her that.
Say at one point, I'm having a bad day. So, that's all there. I noticed that. I don't know if I liked it. I noticed it. I liked this one sequence where Arthur goes to a movie house and they're watching this old Charlie Chaplin movie. I think it's the famous one that's like set in the Great Depression, and he's like a downtrodden factory worker, and there's like this major plot point where he keeps accidentally inciting these riots or uprisings. I think there's a major part where he says that he'd rather be in jail. Like it's a comedic thing where he's trying to get thrown back in jail because the living conditions there are better than they are outside. So as you've probably noticed, there are enough overt big plot echoes between the two stories that's kind of cool. Unfortunately, if you want to look to that Charlie Chaplin movie as like an actual indicator of theme, it doesn't really work because like it is a comedy, it has a happy ending, where I think it's just him like getting a girlfriend and going to make things work in the real world. So it's not like a 1-1 correlation. I just think it's kind of cool to reference an old movie, but I don't think it necessarily tied the whole thing together. I don't know that it was intended to, though. I don't know. I'd call it like a little half-baked, which isn't to say that it doesn't get points. It gets like exactly half points. It's half-baked, A half-baked chocolate chip cookie is still pretty good. I really like the color scheme of the Joker's outfit.
What are you talking about?
Charlie Chaplin's no good, guys. It's not. It's only halfway there.
Okay, I'm being told that Ultimate Agent 25 says that she thinks The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie. Is that true?
Hey, let's not bring up other movies here. Focus on one.
Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie, but the Joker is dumb. Okay, now I get a better perspective of our taste in movies.
I don't know if this particular color scheme is lifted from some already existing incarnation of the Joker, but it's not familiar to me, I don't think. I'm used to
She's right on that one. It was explicitly stated that it's not meant to be depicted on any already established iteration of the Joker. It's supposed to be something fresh, something new, like a new take on the Joker character. And that's why a lot of people don't like it, because to them it's not the Joker. That's fine. That's why I say that I like this movie because of my own personal tastes, and I won't say it's objectively good, but I will defend it because I think it's good.
Well,
but if you don't like, sorry,
comparing it to like The Killing Joke is a bit of a stretch, especially other depictions with Frank Miller or.
Oh yeah.
Geez, it's really tough to do that because every iteration is going to have something new. It's like, oh, this Joker was crazy. This Joker got his eye cut out. Da 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 da. Like, yeah, this one was a nobody. This one was a comedian. This one was a chemist. This one was a mobster. It's like, yeah, they're all different. You like what you like. That's fine. So I don't think you should compare stuff like that. Like, you shouldn't compare like the first Batman movie to Nolan's Batman. They're completely different worlds. I don't think that's a good way to evaluate your lore. You're creating a brand new Joker here, the same way Heath Ledger created a brand new Joker, the same way Jack Nicholson, et cetera, et cetera. So let's have them be perfectly themselves, and you can prefer one interpretation over the other, but they're like apples and oranges essentially.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This is not. They are different, but I wouldn't say one is better than the other, except for Jared Leto, which is worse than everyone. So
We're not sure what that was about. Yeah, Jared Leto was a bit confusing.
I don't know. I heard Jared Leto try to get this movie ruined because
Oh,
they came out with the Joker movie and they didn't involve him.
ooh,
I didn't look into
Jared.
that much, but I did hear that on several occasions that he was trying to sabotage this movie because it didn't involve him.
Yeah, yeah. Don't get jealous over other people's movies. Come on, that's not nice.
Like purple and green, so I thought it was good. Also, I'm going to praise the thing that everybody is praising, that Joaquin Phoenix's performance is really good. It was really good. There's not a lot to say about that. He does convincingly come off.
Okay, well, thank you for that because yeah, his Joaquin Phoenix, his performance is pristine in this movie. It's fantastic, and so I mean, there are flaws in this movie. I could go on about some things that I would say could have been handled better. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie. I mean, which movie is? And I can see why some people might not like it for various reasons. But his acting and his performance in this movie was completely on point, and every scene completely on point. So yeah,
Every time I think of Joaquin, I jump between his depiction of the guy from Gladiator
yes,
and then his weird rap era. He had that where he grew his beard and was rapping on Letterman, and he was the most weirdest sounding. Like he's a moody guy. So to put him into one of these roles where they clean him up somewhat and have him act, what a great avenue for him to let out his feelings and his creativity. So I would say very well casted, as opposed to like say Heath Ledger. We had no idea what to expect from Heath.
yeah,
Heath was I remember him from TV. He was in Roar. Really amazing actor at the time, but he was doing like an action Celtic mysticism story. So it was kind of like prime time-ish, but kind of for kids sort of thing. But this is adult. This is a lot different, and I think that's where Joaquin does really well.
Off as somebody with some kind of social disorder and not just like a weird caricature like Eddie Redmayne in the Fantastic Beasts movies. Sorry, I can't stop coming for the Fantastic Beasts movies. And to give credit to the script as written, I actually also liked a lot of the character details you see of Arthur at the beginning, like the fact that he has a little laminated card that he hands to people about his condition, and the scenes of him at the comedy club where he's trying to like sit at the back and write physical notes about what topic of joke is getting laughs, because he just can't understand like the nuances of comedy and can't figure out how to relate to people. It's like your heart just really breaks for him in those scenes. I thought those were really good. There are all these scenes later that I think are going to be looked at as like his acting moments that I don't think indicate good acting. I think it's all in the subtle stuff at the beginning, but I'm sure everybody's going to be like, oh, that scene where he's smoking and staring at the wall, or that scene where he's like contorting his body in a weird way to dance. And it's like contorting your body and doing exhausting things. Exhausting does not equal good acting, and I think people conflate the two a lot. It's like that scene in Mamma Mia where Meryl Streep is doing The Winner Takes It All. The winner takes it all.
Whoa. Well, I mean, even she admits that she wasn't that prepared for that sort of role at that moment. I think she did anyway, but I don't. It's not like that in the Joker. Everything is done well, including the scenes that some scenes I still don't understand. Like, there's one scene where he locks himself in the refrigerator. I don't know why he did that, but I can. It's probably sort of like to feel that he's trapped. He wants somewhere that's safe. So I mean, so a lot of these scenes are in the Joker movie are up to interpretation as to why, because they don't outright explain it to you. But most of these scenes you can easily see why they're done. It's for the build up. The whole movie is a big, gigantic build-up for the end. And that's why those are there.
So she's making the comparison between this ridiculous singing interlude and Joaquin dancing. Is that?
Or whatever exhausting acting moments that she's saying he had.
Okay.
She's just flailing her arms and her scarf everywhere and like wailing out the song. And that was a well-received performance. Everybody's like, wow, she really went for it on that song. And it's like, okay.
I used to think that my life was a tragedy. But now I realize it's a comedy.
This is actually pretty good.
I want to see this movie now.
Oh, they're dancing.
This is great. I want to see.
You just missed.
So what I'm saying is this was a similar...
Okay, now I want to see Mamma Mia. I've never seen this movie, but now I want to see it. I think Joker sounds makes everything better.
performance. But no, I thought he was really good as Arthur. Even the end, when I stopped liking the way Arthur was written and didn't think it was very consistent, you could feel Joaquin Phoenix trying to like keep it together and feel like the same character. Like
See, that's funny. I've heard the exact opposite. The story gets better as it goes on. It doesn't get worse. That's interesting take.
In the Joker movie?
Yeah, like the first part. The first part is sort of okay, establishing everything, and then it finally picks up. And,
yeah, that's exactly what happens. It's a build up.
And in her case, it's the opposite. She said, "Well, I really liked the first half, or he was doing this and all the little acting, the subtle things." It's like, okay, and then it just the acting takes a nosedive, and you're just like, "Really? Huh?"
It doesn't. It gets way better. It gets fantastic.
It's kind of like we're reading a review or a series of reviews from Rotten Tomatoes, where all the critics are on the other end of the spectrum than the fans. Yeah. That's what this is like right now.
That's what it feels like, yeah. In fact, I wouldn't say it gets better. I think it remains consistent. That's what I'll say. Joaquin Phoenix's performance remains consistent, and it's consistently good.
The fact that as he's giving his big grandiose speech on the talk show, Joaquin Phoenix is still doing kind of a childish inflection. I thought that was really good. So thumbs up. It was good. But to go back to criticism, as I kind of just hinted at, I didn't think there was enough of a through line for his character the way it was written. And also, this is a character study, so this question should be important, but what are Arthur's motivations? They go ahead and give Arthur lines where he says he's not political, not trying...
Does character study need a clear plot? I mean, it should, but there's plenty of character studies like... trying to remember all the 60s movies I used to watch, where it was just a slice of life. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to pick up on a plot because it's day to day. It's just this person's life, which is essentially what this movie is about, right? It's about Arthur.
Yeah, it's about his life. It's about his life and how it gradually spirals out of control. Because he starts off established. He starts off like with a job. You know, he starts off in the status quo, and then the status quo gets shattered. And that's what happens. That's what takes place in the rest of the movie. He loses his meds. He finds out secrets about his family. You know, it's all this stuff. The status quo is established in the beginning, and then the status quo is broken. And that's kind of what happens as he kind of deals with the repercussions of the broken status quo. And he gets more bold and crazier, and does performs more bold actions as the story progresses. So you get to see that spiraling out of control sort of feel you expect to see from a Joker movie.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see why we need, like, how much motivation do we need for a man whose identity is being changed as he discovers about himself? Like, what clear plot do we need from him to say, oh, now it makes sense? It's like he's been lied to, he's being bullied, he's getting down on his luck. He wants to feel better. I mean, it's pretty obvious. He wants to get a better life, and he can't. And then he has to resort to some other way to feel better, and that's expressing himself violently, right? So,
right.
I didn't see the movie. I think that'd be pretty clear.
And to make a statement, etc. So if he's to be believed, which I understand is conditional, What does he want? Our best glimpses of what he wants are pretty obvious. They're in all of the delusions, the fantasy sequences he has. We can glean from the praise other characters give him what he would like to be or to be perceived as. He wants the talk show host he looks up to validate him or almost be like a surrogate father. He wants people to say that he's funny, obviously, but there's one that's a little weird. This is the standout. It's something that his love interest says on one of the dates that he's imagining between them. She looks at the newsstand and sees the headlines about all the riots that Arthur's been inspiring by shooting the Wall Street guys, and she's like, I think that guy's a hero. So that leads us to believe that Arthur wants to be seen as a hero, one would assume. So that suggests that he does want to start a movement. He's happy that that happened, even if it wasn't his initial goal, and he wants to be like a hero or influential. And I'm not saying it's bad that he contradicts this later. I get that he's crazy. That wasn't subtle. So sure, maybe he's not sure what he wants or he's being dishonest on the talk show, but at the same time, I'm pointing out that contradiction so all of the dude bros who defend the movie and they're like, you said he's not political. Well, there are in-text contradictions for that. So
Okay, well, the problem with this is whenever you have a slice of life with someone who's technically medicated and trying to become less crazy, they can go any direction. They can be, hey, today I woke up, I'm not going to be crazy. Tomorrow I'm going to kill someone. Like it's kind of that, slice of life. What's going to happen? Every day is different. Okay, but he's also crazy. So it's chaotic. So would I prefer a plot? I would love a plot. I would love to have a clear understanding. The guy is not clearly understood. He can't be. He's crazy. That's the point.
The craziness really begins once once the clinic shuts down and he's cut off from his medication he's been assigned. The other thing is that he might not be crazy because it's kind of hinted at that he's taking a high dose of medications. He's taking a lot of medication, and he's asking for more because it's implied that they're not doing anything for him. That's why it kind of becomes more understandable when it's later on that's hinted at that he might not be crazy. It's more of an issue of his real self breaking through the mask that he's established. The mask being Arthur Fleck, and his real self being his only identity that he has left by the end, which is the Joker, the Joker character.
This political ambition of his, if he's trying to get it together, how ambitious can you be to start a political movement or whatever? He
does it by accident.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be a very clearly thought out plan, even if there was one.
Oh no, it's not, because there was no plan. It kind of happens by accident, it's kind of out of his hands, and he's not political at all. He's more self motivated, and it's not really self motivated specifically. It's more of he hates people who are mean to people like him, the people who look down. So he has the same sort of mentality as one of the other themes in the movie, which is poor versus rich. Eat the rich, where the rich are kind of stomping on the poor. It's the same mentality, but it's not the exact same thing.
That sounds like a good origin story to start very, very small, have all his ambitions be very relevant in day to day. It's like, hey, this is going to happen. I don't like this. I don't like the little guy being trampled on. And it keeps going from there. If there were to be a sequel, then it would like migrate to gangs or communities, and then eventually to politics or whatever. Like it would naturally grow from there. And if that's what I'm being told, and that's what I'm hearing from other people, that's good. That makes sense. If he would start having political ambitions from day two, that'd be like, whoa, this is probably not believable. So yeah, it would make sense that he would not have political ambitions and things just happen around him because of the nature of the society and the culture he's in. I'm assuming it's Gotham City. So Gotham City is highly corrupt. It's always been that way, whether it's from the politicians or the rich or whomever. So I'm not seeing a problem. Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So there, in his fantasy sequence, when his girlfriend says he's a hero, he even smiles to himself. It's very obvious. And I just wish that if that is what
Okay, one of Arthur Fleck's main motivations, and it's very clear, is that he wants to be accepted by someone. And this happens several times. It happens with Thomas Wayne. It happens with the talk show host, played by Robert De Niro. It's played with his mother, with the quote unquote girlfriend that he gets. When she's already broken the fact that she's not actually real, or at least the relationship they had wasn't actually real. It happens over and over and over again that he wants accepts. So if that means being a hero, fine. What he really wants is to be accepted and for people to treat him like he's worth something. That's one of the clear motivations, and it's through once he breaks the mold of Arthur Fleck and becomes a Joker, he kind of breaks through that need to be accepted. So it's only the Arthur Fleck version of himself, the mask, the one that wants to fit into society, that wants that acceptance. But once he embraces his true identity, which is the Joker, he kind of casts all that off and becomes more of a powerful figure than his old Arthur Fleck self.
Kind of sounds like an inverse of the Bruce Wayne story.
Yes.
How he lost everything, and the mask is Bruce Wayne, and he's really the Batman. And he came from prestige and all this wonderful money and family, and he turned himself into this vigilante. Whereas this guy just wants to belong. He just wants somewhere people to see him as a friend and be friendly with. It's like it doesn't happen, so he forgets about it and becomes something else.
Exactly.
He wanted, it was reflected at all in his actions. Like, he engaged with the mob in some other way than just breaking out of the cop car, seemingly by coincidence in the middle of the mob. I just wish there was a straighter line between, like, his actions and his motivations, like some kind of character study. I get that the Joker is some kind of crazy supervillain, so he doesn't have to do things that, like, make...
Not in this movie. He doesn't sound like a supervillain at all. He sounds like a guy.
He's not. He's not really a villain at all. Until the very end, where he starts doing villainous things.
It sounds like her expectations are being strangely and undesirably subverted, and she's like, "Why is it doing it the way it's supposed?" It's like, well, did you watch the movie?
Because Arthur Fleck is not a mastermind. He's not. That's why people don't really like him as a Joker, because he's not your traditional version of the Joker. He's not a mastermind. He's not all that charismatic, and at least not until the very end. He's not really much of anything. He's not really much of a man at all until he breaks free and embraces the Joker identity. But even after that, he's not really a mastermind. Even then, he's like the most bluntest, most straightforward plan. It's just straight revenge, almost straight revenge, straight to I'm going to get you, because kind of this is not as simple as this, I don't think, but it's kind of on the surface. It is, I'm going to get you because you're mean to me. I want to get you because you're terrible. This world is filled with terrible people, and you are terrible, and therefore must retaliate.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like if there was a sequel to this, or like it was a part of a bigger book or story series, that he would not be the mastermind that we know of in the comics. He would just be this cause for chaos, just lashing out.
That's why I kind of embrace this other theory that people have also kind of tossed around, that he is not the Joker, that he is like the inspiration for the person who would eventually become Batman's Joker, like the person who Batman would fight for years and years and years.
Well, yeah,
he's the icon.
This Joker is always seen as this mastermind. So
Arthur Fleck is not.
No.
Sense to us, or that we approve of, but they have to at least make some kind of internal sense, and if they don't, then he's not a good character to base a movie around. Like, if you're gonna write this thing where the thing he wants is to be an entertainer or get public approval, it's not that hard to write a through line from that, with him being a clown to him being a crazy murderer.
Okay, let me ask this. How many people out there know exactly what they want in life? Isn't that always been a powerful philosophical question that many people have pondered over? You have to, with the self-examine. The examined life is the well-lived life. It's one of those quotes,
That's from Plato, yes.
Yeah. That's it. And it's a whole question that people tend to ask themselves, and people go through decades of their lives not knowing the answer to that. What do I want? What do I want to do with my life? People kind of drift, and that's basically what your 20s are for, I think. But at least traditionally. But it's not very uncommon in a character study. This is different from something like a hero's journey or whatever. In a character study, it's not too uncommon to have a character, especially a character like Arthur Fleck, go through the movie kind of like drifting around, not knowing exactly what he wants. Maybe thinking he knows what he wants, but not really realizing it. And that's kind of what happens in the movie. He thinks he wants acceptance. He thinks he wants to be embraced by society. And then by the end of the movie, he realizes he doesn't. He wants to break free from himself. And that's kind of the switch there.
Yeah, there's always this wonderful rummaging around in the dark when it's a rags to riches story. You start at the bottom, and with this guy, it sounds as if he's always at the bottom. He's never getting
Yeah.
out. So you're constantly questioning, what should I be doing? What should I be striving toward? And that I could see as having a problem in defining a plot, because if you're constantly questioning yourself at every turn, then your goals are going to change all the time. Your motivations are going to change all the time. And you're kind of, running around with your head cut off. You're like, what am I doing next? I don't know. What's happening here? And if you're combining that with medication and possible mental illness, that is more than enough to work with for telling a story. You don't need to try and combine that with a goal that he's always striving for something. You can say I want to get to Philadelphia. That's
It's possible. It's possible to have a character study where the character has a distinct established motivation, and it's not like a hidden or a red herring motivation. It's an actual core motivation of the character. You can. It's just not necessary in a character study.
right.
You can have a whole movie about a character looking for and searching for what they want.
Because murderers do get attention. You could make it this whole media meta commentary. Like, he kills those guys on the subway in self-defense, but then he sees that that's the first thing he's done that's gotten him positive attention, and then he's like, well, maybe that's what I should do. I should just kill everybody. They even have this shot where he kills the talk show host, and then it shows all the TV monitors picking up the story of what he just did, and it's like, OMG, he's famous. And fine, it's some kind of heavy-handed, media, but the rest of the movie wasn't about that at all, and that wasn't part of Arthur's motivation, so what's the point of that? So anyway, that's not a thing. Arthur notices the media coverage, and he, smiles about it, but it doesn't drive any of his later actions. Each subsequent time he kills people, it's for reasons totally unrelated to that, usually just because they wronged him in some way. And until the final kill, he's not trying to get attention for it. Usually it happens somewhere in private, and then he tries to hide that he's done it. That's what's frustrating about Arthur's descent into madness, is it doesn't really feel like a descent. It's more like a point A, point B, and poignant dancing in the middle. The Joker would like that. His reaction to different catalysts often feels arbitrary and not like it's a gradual progression at all. One bad thing will happen and he'll respond violently, and then another equally bad thing will happen and he won't. It's frustrating to even try to articulate this because there's such an easy fallback for anyone trying to defend this movie against any criticism. They can just be like, he's not supposed to make sense. He's the Joker. He's crazy. And it's like, well, yeah, but in a character study movie, it's only interesting if you're willing to actually study the character.
Yeah, but if the character is being crazy, then that's exactly what you need to analyze. You have to analyze his nuts, his craziness, his motivations for being crazy, his background, his history, his friends, or his relationships. That would be part of it. What does this person do for a living? How do they get about their day? What caused them to act this way? So it seems contradictory to actually say those things, that a character study must be X. It's kind of strange.
There has to be some kind of emotional core or sense to what they're doing. If you want to design a character who just kind of does stuff that doesn't make sense,
And we've lost to LiteratureDevil again. Oh, jeez. This seems to happen every stream. I think it's a curse of his computer, but that's okay. I'll charge ahead, see what I can do before he comes back.
that's fine, but not if they're the focal point of a character study, because then you just don't have that much of a movie. This motivation issue for me really came to a head in the big talk show scene, which I feel like is the scene that everybody's going to be talking about. I'm already irritated by this scene because suddenly Arthur is cool and confident and doesn't really display his nervous laughter tick for much of it. And sure, that's supposed to convey that he's transformed or whatever, but an earlier scene goes out of its way to imply that Arthur isn't really mentally ill in a brain chemistry kind of sense, and all of his psychological
Is he not crazy in a brain chemistry kind of sense? If he was being medicated all this time, heavily medicated, I would imply that he has some sort of neurological problem, or at least preventing certain synapses from firing, certain receptors from getting what they need. I think that's the point where he's off his meds. That's when things start going wrong. So that would make sense within the movie as far as I can tell.
Problems are implied to be strongly linked to this head trauma he received as a child when he was abused by his mother's abusive boyfriend, which, by the way, is framed as his mother's fault. So if this is all the result of some kind of physical lesion in his brain, I don't understand how some kind of aha moment where he decides to be a murderer is going to suddenly cure his inability to present as normal in social settings. But anyway.
Okay, if you've been medicated most of your adult life and all of a sudden you're off your meds, you're going to have a pretty drastic change in personality, behavior, etc. So you don't need a brain aneurysm. You don't need a cancerous tumor. Your entire chemistry has changed. Your entire day-to-day has changed. Your outlook has changed, how you breathe, how you walk, how you talk. So, and if she knows anything about medication or types of medication and being heavily medicated like a barbiturate or an upper or a downer, whatever you've got, you will change. For good or worse, your whole new world has just stopped and another one has started. And that's a big, big change to anyone. It's like realizing you could see now or realizing you can't see anymore. It's that drastic. So I don't know what she's arguing for in this regard. If you know, again, study anything in psychology first year. The drastic change that even small amounts of drugs will do to you. And if Arthur has been heavily medicated most of his adult life, and he's what, 50, 60 now? Like that's a huge change. That's a huge shock to your system. So not sure what her argument is there, but
anyway, this scene is where Arthur is basically saying his thesis to the audience, and it's a mess. It's all over the place. Right out the gate, Arthur, it
sounds as if he's crazy. Wow.
It's very heavy-handed. He comes out and sits on the couch and tells an inappropriate joke. It's like a mean-spirited knock-knock joke about someone's son dying in a drunk driving accident. And they've written in this pearl-clutching old lady character to sit next to Arthur, and it's so heavy-handed. She goes, "You can't joke about that. What a mean, offensive thing to tell jokes about." And this was the worst moment of my viewing experience. This was the moment I had my own Arthur-style delusion in which Todd Phillips was sitting next to me and like nudging me with his elbow and being like, "Do you understand?" See, writer-director Todd Phillips has been going on every interview for the last several months and like complaining about how he can't make another Hangover-esque movie because people are too easily offended by his jokes these days. As if there aren't a million movies getting made every day that are equally as trashy as his Hangover movies and that there isn't a huge thriving audience for them.
Okay, so he wants to make a movie that people aren't going to get too pissed off about and people might actually want to see. Yeah, how dare he? That's horrible. What does he want to do? Fit in? Try to make money? Try to be successful at his craft? Yeah, that's just bad. Yeah, how dare he try to make a film that people might actually be interested in watching?
Sorry, I have no strong feelings about The Hangover. I haven't seen any of them. They might be funny. They probably are. They made a lot of money. I look like Bilbo Baggins. It's just when I hear a comedian say, "Nobody likes my jokes because they're offended," my brain just filters that, so all I hear is "nobody likes my jokes," which is a good warning to receive from a comedian. I already thought it was weird that he was complaining about that so much because, like, what does that have to do with Joker, the film that he's promoting? And the answer is it has nothing to do with the Joker. There's nothing at all to do with that. Arthur's comedy career is not failing because his jokes are too offensive. He's not failing because he tells off-color jokes. He's failing because he has brain damage. The few clips we
Does Arthur Fleck or does the character in the story actually have brain damage, or is he just heavily medicated? Again, this would be nice to know. I don't have the inside scoop, but even if it was brain damage, isn't that interesting to analyze in a character study? It's like, hey, here's a guy who has brain damage. Look, this is what he does. Hey, why doesn't he have a plot? Gee, maybe because he has brain damage. Maybe because his life was a lie, etc., etc. How is this a bad thing exactly, if that's the point of this movie?
See of his comedy performances, he's bombing because he has an uncontrollable laughter tic that happens when he's nervous. His jokes aren't inappropriate, they're like baby joke book jokes. They're almost tragic in how earnest and childish they are. But no, they have the old lady say that, and then in his speech, Arthur is even like, you decide what's right and wrong, just like you decide what's funny and what's not. And it's like, having this weird, you can't joke about that grandmother sitting next to Arthur on the talk show, and having that be the thing that kicks off this confrontation is just the moment that writer-director Todd Phillips comes out of the screen like a 3D movie to complain to you about his career. The whole
Hey, LiteratureDevil's back. I think. I hope. I can't say. Hey, hello, sir, are you there? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Well, we'll pray for you, sir, but we'll keep going here.
speech is just a hot mess. You can't have it both ways. You can't make a movie about a mentally ill man's tragic descent into further madness and then also have an ending where he gives a big coherent speech where he's a mouthpiece for you, the writer-director, about how nobody wanted a fourth Hangover movie. And then
Yep, we don't want a fourth Hangover movie. We got the Joker. That's right. Okay. LiteratureDevil, are you there, sir? Seems you're connecting. Let's try a different server. Maybe that's the thing. Let's try Hong Kong. There we go. Hong Kong it is. Are you there, sir? Still nothing. Oh, that's too bad. Well, we'll keep trucking along here.
then in this very same scene where you have the Joker parodying the exact thoughts and feelings of the director as expressed in every interview, you also have a line where he says, "What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that ignores him and treats him like trash? You get what you deserve." And then he shoots the talk show host in the head. And it's like, well, does the writer-director also believe this?
Who cares what the writer-director believes? Who cares what the interview of pre or post movie was about? This is completely irrelevant to analyzing the content of the film. And to start interpreting his intentions is almost useless. Who cares what he was thinking when he wrote the script or when he was directing the film?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
There you are, sir. Hello.
There we go.
And
I could have sworn I fixed that. Sorry about that.
He has to recharge his batteries for the internet.
Round two.
In a while. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe the net neutrality police came by and cut your cable, and then you have to go replace it.
Mandatory shut off about 20 minutes.
Well, it seems as if the critic here is talking about how interviews with the writer-director is not lining up with the actual content of the movie, and I had to explain that these kinds of criticisms of the movie vis-a-vis the director interviewers are stupid. This is what you don't do in criticism. You don't say, well, the actor was thinking this when this happened. It's like, yeah, but that has nothing to do with his performance. It has nothing to do with the script. And what he intended to do is irrelevant to what was actually done. So I don't know what she's trying to say here, but that's where we are. Yeah.
Is this what the movie's about? Is it in support of the Joker shooting the host in the head? Because contextually, it kind of seems that way. So aside from the poor implications of that line, I also just don't like that line. I think it's...
Okay.
Is this purity testing? I
don't know.
You have to be okay on this. Because when we watch NPC stuff, they usually tell you, yeah, they're for X, Y, and Z views. But this is more of an interpretive movie. And when you're going into that, it doesn't really matter what the director thought in this instance. It doesn't matter what the actor thought. It matters what the interpretation is. When it's a Hollywood SJW stuff, it's direct. They outright tell you they hate X, Y, and Z. They want to make X, Y, and Z demographic of people mad. This is interpretive. So even if the director wanted to do it one way, it doesn't have to be that way. The Joker is highly interpretive for that reason.
Yeah, it's kind of like looking at the end of Watchmen and saying, do you believe what Ozymandias did was right or wrong? It's like, well, I don't like the fact that he blew up New York, but he achieved what he was going for, so I guess that's good.
He's good at getting what he's done.
Do you support terrorism? It's like, what?
It's two different things. Like SJWs and NPCs or whatever, like the far left, they go, do you support terrorism? Why or why not? And when it's a Joker movie, it's do you support this character? It's more left up to how you interpret it, whether you agree with his motivations, whether you agree with his actions, whether you agree where he came from, why he's doing what he does, versus are you a evil person or are you not an evil person?
Yeah, first, can I talk to you as one of my own, or do I have to demonize you? Like, which one is it?
Yeah, which one is it? Just tell me up front.
Messy, and I will explain. I just think it feels clumsy and unrealistic for a mentally ill movie character to outright state that they are mentally ill in order to give some kind of movie thesis statement. I also think it's weird that
is he mentally ill? That's one of the major themes of this thing. Is he mentally ill, or is he like the Joker in the comic? Because sometimes the Joker in the comic is not mentally ill. There's I think a whole character version of the Joker where he's not mentally ill. He's just a mastermind. So in this instance, one of the questions brought up by the movie is whether or not Arthur Fleck is mentally ill. It could be the fact that Arthur Fleck is the false face of the character, and there's a lot of information and backup to go with this. And then on the other hand, it might not be. It's hinted at that he's not mentally ill. It's just that his true self is the Joker, and the mental illness is what appears to be mental illness is him fighting back against his true identity. The tension between Arthur Fleck and the Joker identities.
That's a very common theme found in the Batman series with Bruce Wayne. Even in the Telltale game series, he seems to favor the criminals and the people he's with to fit in and just to get into their world so much that you could actually befriend the Joker character, and they call him John Doe. And you could actually, end up one of the storylines is to be his friend, and he's in Arkham, and you visit him and what have you. So the idea that because Batman is, putting on a cape and cowl and running around in spandex every night, is kind of crazy. So yeah, he admits that he's one of these people. He just happens to be on the other side of that coin, trying to keep everyone in check. And he's doing it out of vengeance and anger and resentment of what happened to his family. So it's a simple enough emotion, but Jenny doesn't like it because it's too confusing.
It's sloppy and whatever else she said. It's clumsy and sloppy and all that stuff. Okay.
Even though he's like in full Joker mode and shooting people, he says mentally ill instead of crazy, as though not wanting to offend anybody. Anyway, for me...
Oh, isn't that nice? He's using the right words.
I mean, he knows he's mentally ill. He knows it. he makes a joke about it in his book. He knows he's mentally ill. He doesn't know he's mentally ill because he might not be, but he knows he's different. He knows he's not normal. So yeah, he's well aware of it, and that's made clear to us, the audience members, from very early on in the movie. So it's not really all that jarring to see him have that same mentality by the end.
The only redeeming quality of that scene is that the Joker uses werewolf as a verb. I love that. I feel like I say this about so many movies, but what was the theme? What was it about? It sure presents itself as though it has something to say, and it half says many things, but it doesn't.
I can tell you the theme is about a crazy guy trying to fit into society.
It's about identity. It's one of the main themes is identity. I don't know how she's missing this. Everything is centered on identity. Pretty much everything that's introduced, almost every plot thread that's introduced is centered around Arthur Fleck's identity, because he doesn't really have one. Or he doesn't have one that he knows about, and he kind of has to learn it later on.
And he's trying to fit in. It doesn't work out. That's the major conflict. Something bad happens.
Yeah, the Patrick Bateman. Right. I want to fit in. That's pretty much it.
Commit to any of them. Is it about the unfairness of class disparity? Thomas Wayne definitely seems pretty generically evil. I mean, he's confronted by a seemingly non-violent, mentally ill man, and he punches him in the face, and he calls poor people clowns on the news. That's what incites all those
Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait. Okay, that's out of context. Okay. two things here. One thing's a major spoiler, but Thomas Wayne has a very long and rough history with Arthur Fleck's mother, that she's crazy. She's just to try to avoid spoilers. Just think of her as a crazy fangirl. That she's the stalkerish type. That's kind of like the relationship that they have between Thomas Wayne and her. She's delusional about him and everything. And second of all, by the time he punches Arthur Fleck had come to his house and messed around with Bruce Wayne. Like he approached the gate. Bruce Wayne approached the gate. He kind of like was in. Arthur Fleck is a creepy guy, so Arthur Fleck was like performing magic tricks on him. There's like a very odd, kind of uncomfortable thing with a wand, where it's like a straight wand, and he puts his wand into Bruce's hands, and he goes limp, and it's kind of okay. It's kind of going to have comfortable here, but it helps portray the uncomfortableness that you should be feeling at that moment, and then he sticks his hands into Bruce's mouth, or his thumbs into Bruce's mouth to force a smile. You know, if you do that to a father's son, and you're a stranger just touching a kid, that's, you know, I'm not going to be very happy with you. That's not going to endear me to you, that you are just laying hands on my kid, you know, on my property, on my personal property. And not only that, you are the supposed son of this crazy woman who has been stalking me my entire life. So, yeah, it's pretty reasonable that since Arthur Fleck again stalks Thomas Wayne to the movie theater, that he would then punch him in the face. That's uncharacteristic of pretty much anybody.
It seems justified. I don't know the content of the movie, but you know, if the reasons are made visible to the audience,
it's in context. It's more or less justified why he would punch Arthur Fleck in the face. I think he deserved it. Yeah, I think Arthur Fleck deserved that punch in the face the way he was behaving.
Which are kind of a focal point of the movie. But Arthur has that whole bit on the talk show where he insists that, at least according to him, he's not political, didn't mean to become a symbol for that movement, doesn't have strong feelings about it one way or the other. But then he contradicts that by getting mad at Thomas Wayne for not caring about the little guy. So I guess he does support that movement, but then why not just say he supports the movement? He has an opportunity, he has a platform to say it, and why not kill Thomas Wayne when he had the chance?
It's because he doesn't support the movement. It's not political. His motivations aren't political. He just hates the overall generalization of the big guy stomping on the little guy, because he's been the little guy his whole life, and he's been stomped on his whole life. He's pretty much Gollum from Lord of the Rings, just being punished and brutalized on a daily basis.
Yeah, he will dislike everything the other person likes just because. There's no reason therein. It's just, I don't like you, therefore I will dislike everything you like.
He's violent now. He kills the talk show host instead for being mean to him, which is a pretty feeble reason. He just kills mean people. That's his thing. If we are meant to believe Arthur that he doesn't stand for anything, which I think is kind of a big if,
the violence in Arthur's heart had been established earlier on, because in some of these fantasies, because sometimes it goes to him acting out some of these violent fantasies. And sometimes it goes to him killing someone, maybe or maybe not killing someone, brutalizing someone, kicking them in the street. So in the first major act of violence was, of course, with the Wall Street guys. So it's not all of a sudden he's violent. It's been building up. Like I said, everything's a build up until the end. It was well established fairly early on that Arthur Fleck is not the most wholesome of characters.
What the movie's about? Is it about how violent criminals are just unhinged, shouldn't be looked to as heroes or symbols? But then why does he get to have a big speech at the end of the movie about how the world has wronged him? Why suddenly make him capable of delivering a coherent mission statement at the moment in the film that he's supposed to be the craziest? Is it literally just a deconstruction of Batman? They have this line...
What? Batman? What does Batman have anything to do with the Joker movie?
Nothing. Bruce Wayne is a kid in here.
Why is
I guess they're saying themes. I don't know.
Why is she bringing up other mythos when it has nothing to do with the movie? I don't understand.
I guess because Batman is a vigilante, works outside the law, but people see him as a hero.
Why
all Jokers kind of do the same thing.
Why isn't the movie about Harley Quinn? Isn't Harley Quinn part of the mythos of the Joker? Like, where'd she appear in the movie? It's like, listen, lady, the movie's called Joker. It's about Joker. It doesn't have to be
Harley Quinn is her own thing.
At the beginning, where the news stations are talking about this epidemic of giant super rats because, like, no one's been cleaning up the garbage, the city keeps getting worse, the rats are getting bigger and meaner and scarier. And then one of the hosts jokes that the way to take care of the super rats is now they're going to bring in super cats. And it's like a meta commentary on Batman, like he's a band-aid solution. He doesn't actually fix what's wrong. You bring in a Batman to beat up the criminals. You don't address why there's so much crime. You don't address the class disparity in Gotham City. Whatever. This is not a new concept. If anything, this is like baby's first Batman critique. It's been talked to death.
Why is she critiquing Batman? What is she talking about? The movie's called Joker. It's about this guy becoming Joker. There is no mention of Batman, as far as I am told.
It doesn't even have to be deconstruction. It's just, if you take the movie as a whole by itself, then it has its own themes. It doesn't really relate to Batman at all, except Thomas Wayne is in it, and he kind of plays kind of an important part to Arthur Fleck's life, but he's not central to it. He's not central to the movie. He's just kind of there. And then Bruce is in the movie, and that's it. Bruce is just a motivation for Thomas Wayne to punch him in the face.
And it's like, yeah, that's what happens when you try to make serious movies out of like a thing made for kids 80 years ago or whatever. So maybe that.
What are you talking about? What does this have
Just watch the movie.
A serious movie made for kids 80 years ago? Like what? So
this is why the creators made this movie not based on anything. This is a fresh new Joker. This is not based on any comic book story. It's just so it can be its own self-contained product.
I'm trying to think of what happened in the 1940s and 50s to constitute serious movies made for kids, and I cannot, for the life of me, think of anything.
The only thing I can think of is that Adam West Batman, which is pretty much made for kids.
That's the 60s, yeah. I don't know what the heck that was made for. The 60s were pretty weird, so...
That's the one I can remember with Batman with a silly Joker.
Oh, gosh.
That's part of the theme because like Arthur isn't actually getting any treatment that he needs when he's sick. It's not until he manifests as like violently crazy and then he's just arrested and taken away, like the cat solution. But why give Arthur that line where he says he found things easier when he was still locked up? As if he's in favor of that solution? Why allude to the Charlie Chaplin movie with the same kind of plot element? Like, is him being locked up bad or good? Why don't I get to watch a scene where Arthur has to ward off 3-foot-long super rat with a baseball bat? You promised me super rats.
What the hell is she talking about?
That's another problem that people have with this movie. It's not a superhero movie.
She wants to see super rats in the Joker movie. Why? Because it was mentioned on the radio? What is she talking about?
Like she said, it was a metaphor. It was super rats, super cats.
I thought that she was aware this was a character study. So why do we have to see a giant rat monster attack the Joker? I don't like. What is she?
That would be really dumb if they actually did that. That would be really dumb.
It's like, what are you talking? We've already established here this. That we were really sensitive about character issues and motivations, and all of a sudden, why don't we get a super rat? Why can't the Joker attack one? It's like, why?
It's not a superhero movie, okay? Even if it were a comic book style movie, it's a movie about a supervillain. He's not going to be solving problems. He's probably going to be going around causing them.
It's such a this is such a strange angle she took. I'm like, what are you going on about now? But okay, we're almost done. So we got about 11 minutes. 12 minutes? Yeah, let's see what we can do. Okay.
Bring me the super rats. Is the movie really about the underfunding of mental health care? Because even when Arthur was in treatment, his doctors seemed apathetic. It didn't appear to be helping. And they even suggest that when he's off meds, he's healthier and more coherent and more in control of himself. And it's like, what? So is the message nobody should be on meds? Are they always a negative? And
Jenny,
the message
is the message?
That the message to me is kind of like the Joker. He gets off the meds. He's more himself. Maybe the meds were being hammering down his true identity, which is what I've been saying this whole time.
Like, why can't she grasp that idea? It's like, this is what happens in the movie.
Don't know.
Is this what really happens?
Yeah, it's clear in the movie. I mean, I don't know why she's like trying to hate it. I don't know. It's clear in the movie. If anyone in the chat has seen the movie, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just looked at it the wrong. Maybe I'm watching movies wrong. I don't know.
It's like, hey, look.
It was clear to me.
The movie's showing you he gets better when he's off his meds. Is this what the movie's showing us? Like, yes, dear, it is. Do you
that
want
yeah,
to?
he is better off of his meds because he's more in control of his. He starts cracking the identity of Arthur Fleck, the false identity, the mask of Arthur Fleck begins to crack, and his real self begins to come out. So you can take that as interpretive. Maybe he should be on his meds because it's a sign that his craziness, his mental illness is taking over because he's not being cared for anymore. Or it could be the other hand. On the other hand, that he's not crazy after all, and that the meds are just holding back his true self, which is something that I've heard people say when they're on these medications that it kind of hinders your self worth. Kind of I heard some people say, especially in movies, that you take these medications and they're not you. You're not you anymore.
Yeah,
Anymore.
there
You're not
there are
yourself.
some rare conditions where you need to keep the people medicated, but for most cases, I understand them. At least psychiatrists is that they say, here's this medication. This will make you feel a certain way, and they want to know how they think and feel during and after, so they can understand what their mental state is when they behave a certain way, so they can isolate it and say, okay, this is what's wrong, and then they perform a certain kind of therapy. They don't just say, okay, now you're on this for life, or take 2 of these, you'll be fine. That's not how it works in those sorts of scenarios. It's mental health is not a one and done sort of thing. It's you have an issue. It's something you have to work with that within yourself. Medication will help you in that direction, but you have to go on that journey, and eventually you have to stop taking that medication. So, in most cases, in very specific cases, like some people are psychotic or antisocial or whatever, and they need it in order to operate properly. So,
Yeah.
it happens.
Why make a point to clarify that Arthur has physical brain damage? Is that to also support the idea that he shouldn't be on meds and meds are bad? Why have that whole theme of Arthur trying to present as normal? We have that line in his notebook that they zoom in on where it says, the worst part about having a mental illness is people expect you to behave as if you don't. So is the message to embrace the idea of people having strange tics or social disorders and not expect a degree of normalcy, because that's fine, but that can't be the theme, because for Arthur, accepting himself and liking who he is directly correlates to him murdering people. So I hate to say it, but given the choice between murdering people and conforming, I personally would kind of prefer that Arthur conform.
Yeah, I think most people would prefer people not killing other people. I think that's a given.
I think so too. I have to agree with that.
But we're not talking about Arthur. We're talking about the Joker, and the story is the Joker and what happened to this person to become the Joker. So yes, I wish the Joker
One of the most
never,
infamous villains
yeah,
of all time.
I wish the Joker never happened, but this is the story we're following. That's the point of the story.
That's how we know that? It's because the movie is called The Joker.
Wow, I know. You know that character in Star Wars. He's this good dude in black. I wish he didn't blow up the Death Star and kill all those people.
That'd be awful.
That's
Why do you have to kill so many people?
Yeah, just a bad idea in general. I don't know why, but I guess it's a movie. You gotta watch it. Oh Jesus!
You got a $10 super chat from a Joseph Kerwin. Why do people expect every movie to have some moral lesson? Exactly, that's what I'm asking here. Is everything an after-school special? Exactly. Why is she saying like every single scene must mean something on a larger scale?
Well,
so I'm taking these scenes as building up to certain messages that are kind of targeted, but not every single scene, every single thing in the movie must mean something on a metaphysical scale.
That's a bit over the top to have every scenario have a lesson. I have nothing against ethics or teaching a moral or any kind of, like, even use a theme to teach a lesson, like always look before you leap, or don't trust everyone you talk to. It's something simple like that. But it doesn't have to be like every scene.
It is true that the creators of Joker movie did say that they put some politics or some message in the movie, but it's not. I don't think it's every single scene. I don't think it should be every single scene. It's the overall themes that portray these messages, overall patterns in the movie that would be the vehicle for these methods. I mean these point of views or the ethics that whatever ethics they wanted to stuff in the movie.
Right.
It's the themes and the patterns that would be the vehicle for that.
See, when I say theme, I mean what the movie is about or the story is about. So the 33% of the story is about this one thing that's a major theme. 32% is the minor theme, etc. And her criticism is that she wants to clarify what exactly is going on. And I'm like, that's a noble desire to have in any story. You want clarity. But when you're talking about a story where the man isn't even sure if he's aware of his own senses, where he has potential brain damage and he's going off medication. Again, I don't know what kind of medication it is. You can't have clarity pop up, or else it's going, oh, he has a tumor. Yeah, he's crazy. Like that would be that.
And that's part of the charm of the Joker movie, is that it purposefully does not give you clarity. It gives you a movie, but it's up to you whether or not you choose to acknowledge some things as actually happening or some things as false, because they actually specifically state some things did happen and some things didn't. That way you can kind of it takes your mind to the place, well, when we get to the stuff that happens after that and a few things that happened before that, those instances, that what is real and what isn't. That's especially towards the end of the movie, that's a major thing you have to keep in mind.
It's a strange thing. Someone just gave me a super chat. I have not read that book by William Sampson. A friend of mine did, but I have not actually picked it up. So thank you for that reference. I always love when people recommend me books, just because
Oh yeah,
it's always fascinating. If it's going to make these people's heads explode, it's like, I'm going to read that now. I'm probably going to pick it up. I'm still reading the third book of the trilogy of the Scythe trilogy by Neil Shusterman.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just for my personal entertainment. These books are like, okay, yeah, people who don't grasp basic themes or plots or concepts or theses, whatever. I don't know. Maybe those books are great for clearing your palate for all this ridiculous stuff of interpretation. So always good to have those books around.
Maybe I'm alone in this. The movie gives so many of its characters statements that sound like they're the theme about, like, what's wrong with society, what needs to be fixed, but then it can just as easily back away from any of them by being like, well, that
you're not supposed to be listening. Like, it's just not just the dialogue that conveys theme. It's actions and scenes and the overall tone. They can say whatever they want. Doesn't mean that they're actually going to be truthful, especially since the nature of the Joker movie is that you have an unreliable narrator.
And the narrator is always Arthur, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah.
good guy, or that character's crazy. And it's like, well, then say something. There was so much talk around this movie about how it's going to encourage mass murderers or incel murderers or whatever. Same thing, I guess. And I don't know, time...
What's the same thing? I don't understand what
They're not the same thing. Incel murders are not the mass murder. Like, all mass murders are not incels, I don't think. And all incels aren't mass murderers.
Is she talking about the hype
whole,
before the movie?
Yeah, the media hype.
Yeah.
And the media was like, this movie's going to cause people to go out and kill people or cause people to mass murder movie theaters or whatever. What it actually did was cause people to stand up and fight for their rights for freedom. So
yeah, I sent you a tweet. It was a video tweet on a bunch of people across the world in protests, different protests, different scenarios, whether it was war or unrest or whatever municipal issue. And they just dressed up as the Joker. That was it. There was all these people, different backgrounds, different countries. Like, wow.
Because the feel of the movie was that you're breaking against society, you're breaking against the established norm. And when the established norm is tyranny, that's a pretty effective message.
Yeah, I just don't know where she's like. She just talked about it. See what she has to say about the potential response from incels after the movie premieres. Like, I'm like, what? She jumped around so many times with interviews and crap, and I'm like, what are you getting at? Let's just see.
We'll tell, I guess, but honestly, this movie is so devoid of a message and such a blank slate that, yeah, I guess people could just make it be about whatever they want it to be, and it doesn't really mean it's guilty of that.
The message. There's clear stuff in there. There's clear stuff in the movie. I don't know how much better they can spell it out for you, unless they directly tell you to your face what these things are. These scenes are very clear. They're drawn out. They show you the buildup. They show you everything. They show you that the one of the major crises of Arthur Fleck is identity, and the tension between his Joker identity and his Arthur Fleck identity. It's so many things about truth and lying to yourself or lying to the world or telling the truth to yourself or telling truth to the world. It's all right there. You don't need to be some sort of literary genius or some professional critic to acknowledge these scenes and the patterns and themes present in there. They show you specifically. They kind of just focus on the camera on these things and these important scenes and themes specifically for a long amount of for a great amount of time, and they bring in all sorts of other elements to help establish the other scenes that you see. So it's not hidden somewhere. It's not going out of our way to bring in the themes. It's right there. It's very intentional. We're not going into symbolism and bringing in 37 wombs or something. It's right there in the movie.
Well, that's what she's saying. It's so interpretive. Anyone could say anything about it. And she's like, what is the actual message? And it's like, well, you just said anyone could interpret it any way you like.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there are things that are actually established in the movie, and there are things that are very interpretive in the movie. But there are some things that are rock solid as facts in order to establish and give a concrete cohesiveness to the more abstract parts of the movie.
It sounds like an entertaining flick. I mean, it's not the perfect flick, but it sounds like, hey, someone who can understand the basic elements of someone down on his luck, who's been medicated all his life, suddenly gets out of that, and how he deals with that in this strange, bizarre way. Sounds interesting. Doesn't sound action-packed. It doesn't sound...
No, it's not action.
Overtly dramatic. It sounds kind of creepy, kind of weird, kind of like artsy film go-y.
Yeah, it's exactly pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
Like, don't go into this movie thinking you're going to see a Marvel movie.
Yeah,
it's very action.
Who's the bad guy?
The bad guy society, man.
Yay.
Means that it's irresponsibly vague and like weirdly unnecessary. I will say this: when I saw
what does that even mean?
It's weirdly
Irresponsibly
unnecessary.
vague?
You don't
Weirdly
need to go
unnecessary,
see.
irresponsibly vague.
You don't need to go see the movie, guys. It's okay.
What
It's
does that even mean? Is it also narratively correct?
Narratively correct. The Joker is narratively correct.
Give me a break.
I didn't get to hear any kind of audience reactions because I saw it enclosed in my car at a drive-in movie theater because I didn't want to get shot. But then...
That was a joke, I think. I think she was
so.
making a joke. Yeah, okay.
It's hard for me to interpret, like, sometimes that when is she telling a joke, because she doesn't actually change her voice or any inflection.
Yeah, I
she
think
just says things.
That's part of her comedy. I know, it's very, very specific style of comedy she's got there.
In order to talk about this movie, I felt like I had to look it up and like rewatch certain scenes, primarily the talk show scene because it's so dialogue heavy and because it feels like it's given a lot of importance by the movie.
By the way,
So anyway,
I love the talk show scene. That is an awesome scene. It reminded me of that scene from Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. It was sort of like that, but it's its own little creation, but it's very similar to that. They bring on the Joker, and he causes chaos, and for his own reasons. Well, in The Dark Knight Returns, it's for, well, traditional Joker reasons. With Arthur Fleck, it's movie plot reasons, more characteristic reasons why he does that. So, but it is very similar to that. So that's why I like it's a very, very good scene. It's one of my favorites. It's very well done. Very well done.
I looked up a lot of like fan cams of it and you can hear the audience reactions in that, and I was a bit surprised. There were like 3 different uploads of varying quality, and in every single one, at the moment that he shoots the talk show host, you literally hear dudes like clapping, and in one of them the guy behind the camera is even like, that was great. Haha, that was so
It was great.
And it's like, what?
Okay, I see nothing wrong with people clapping. The fact that she thinks dudes are clapping from
Dude bros.
various, like, the 3 or 4 like fan cams or whatever. It's like, how do you know? How do you know the gender of the hands coming together? It's a very strange observation. But
by
even
the time you feel for Arthur Fleck, you know.
but even if it's a horrific scene, what's wrong with going, wow, look at all that gore, or wow, look
maybe
at
it was well done. I don't know.
it's entertaining. It's a movie. What's wrong with that?
I can't cheer when like the predator gets killed or something.
Yeah,
It's still gore.
I remember watching what was it? Long time ago, the Blair Witch Project. Like, I'm not very. You can't really scare me very easily. Okay, so I was kind of half giggling, sort of half like smirk, like going, "Oh, this is a serious scene." Okay, but like, there's some scenes that I just can't. Like, I couldn't stop giggling over. And people would look at me like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Because everyone's terrified. And I'm just like, oh, come on. This is so stupid. Like, that's the kind of reaction I would have. Especially right near the end where the guy's just hanging against the wall. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Some guy in the dark just like,
What is he doing?
like, what is he doing? Is he hanging his coat against the wall and he kept his head against it and he died? Like, what the hell?
Is there a teacher down there to put him in the corner for being bad?
I don't know.
Over there.
It was so because honestly, if you're in Canada, you run around the forest. It's like, yeah, you can see something is about to kill you. It's not going to come out of nowhere. So we're getting lost in circles. Oh my god! It's like, yeah, do you have a compass? It doesn't work. Okay, keep walking in a straight line. You'll be fine. It's not hard. So yeah, that was like, you can laugh and cry at any scene, and there's nothing wrong with that, even if the scene is not supposed to be funny or dramatic. Okay.
Call the police. Get what you deserve.
That was great. That was great.
That was great.
That's great. That's great. It's gonna be great. That's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Great.
Oh, the protagonist of the movie gets his moments.
He
I'm
wins.
not trying to say that makes you a murderer, because it definitely doesn't. But it does kind of suggest that
What?
you can't follow the emotion.
I'm not trying to say it makes you a bad person, because it doesn't. But I'm trying. But I'm actually am. I'm
Thanks,
saying
Jenny.
you're a murderer.
Thanks, Jenny, for telling us what we should feel.
You can't like a violent scene in a movie, because if you do, you're a murderer.
Yeah, you're
okay.
clearly watching that point. You're not watching the movie wrong. Just that scene. You're watching that scene wrong.
Yes, you're supposed to be horrific. You're supposed to be clutching your non-existent pearls over this.
There we go. That's it.
Emotional cues of any story more complex than like Iron Man. Like, you sat through that whole Joaquin Phoenix performance and you made it to like the 110 minute
Who is she
mark.
to be critiquing how we perceive complexities in a movie? He's been saying how this movie's dumb because it's not simple enough for her this entire time.
It's not clear enough. I'm like, you know what? I can get behind that argument, but the argument she's presented is like, there's so many messages. It's like, that's because there's so many characters. There are different characters in a story. They're going to have different messages. It's kind of how people behave, different minds.
It's kind of like she was expected. She went in to go see The Sun Also Rises, but she wanted to really go see Spot Run or something.
It's strange. It's like, I
She went
need
in
subtitles. I need to hear everything and see everything and
Exactly.
color coordinate.
She was expecting
everything.
a children's book.
Yeah.
You're expecting a children's piece, but she went in to go see a masterpiece.
It's like, if you take a barbiturate, you're going to feel this. This is an upper, and therefore Arthur is going to feel like that. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it.
They like want to pause the movie, like someone steps out to explain things for you. Okay, only then would Joker be an excellent movie.
Ugh.
Thinking this was some kind of feel-good underdog story. Did you process that as a triumphant scene? Do you think things are gonna go well for Arthur from here? What were those people even doing for the rest of the movie? Were they just sitting there like bored out of their skulls? Like, we're action scene. When Joker fight Batman?
Oh, come on. Here we go. Stop talking about Batman, please. Please.
If that was their mentality, they would have left by now. The whole movie, if those people wanted to see Batman or action scenes, they would have walked out the theater way before that happened, because there is no real action scenes anywhere. There's acts of violence, but there's no action. Like, it's kind of like he goes around shooting people. He shoots people who might kill people.
I'm trying to wrap my brain around her why she keeps talking about Batman. Just stop it. This is getting ridiculous. Is that the
You don't need
joke?
Batman for this movie.
Is that the dude bro joke? Oh, Batman was in the movie. It's no good. Well, they liked the movie. The dude bros liked the movie, and there was no Batman.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Apparently they liked the movie. They weren't bored out of the skulls, because if they were, one would have left, and two would have been complaining, finally some action scenes. No, they said, oh, that's great. It's a great scene because it was a great scene. It was fantastic. It doesn't mean you're rooting for Arthur Fleck. It doesn't mean you even sympathize with him. It was a great scene because of plot reasons and character reasons. Because it was building up to that scene. It was building up to it. It's because it's horrific. Because it's an act of murder doesn't mean that you can't like it for narrative or literary reasons.
It doesn't make you a murderer, as we've established, as she believes as well. You're not a
No, it
horrible
doesn't make
person.
you a racist. It doesn't make you a bigot. But I'm not saying it makes you a murderer.
How dare we have elements of murder and racism and mental health in our movies nowadays? What were we thinking, putting this into print?
What were they thinking? What were they thinking?
Producers and directors.
Yeah, she needs to stick with Marvel, it seems. And something simple. Something that
Lasers
just
and
takes its time to
explosions.
tell you what it is. All right, this is an explosion. Thanos is the bad guy. Thanos bad guy, we good guy. That's what kind of movie apparently she needs to be watching.
Where's Batman?
Yeah, we need I want Batman. We're Batman. We're Joker. We're fight.
I don't like that scene at the end where it cuts to him in a bright hospital and he's like talking to a therapist and it's ambiguous as to whether or not the whole movie happened. Aha! I bet like at
You're
least
not going to
20
do
of you
this,
thought
are you? You're not going to be coming into this, critiquing this scene like you have been the rest of the movie. Okay, let's see what she says. Let's see what he says about this ending. I'm curious.
It's a Fight Club event. Oh, he's like, the whole movie.
That'd be kind of cool. Wouldn't fit the movie, but it'd be kind of interesting. Does he get another $10 super chat from Joseph Kerwin?
Okay.
Maybe the movie should have been paused. Then Batman walks on Mary's stage and explains in simple words the lessons we're supposed to learn and how to apply it to our lives. Okay, maybe then she would like it because it's been. You see, they sat you down and they explained to you what you're supposed to do with your life in plain English.
Yes, the good guy who is somehow inserted into this movie, has no context whatsoever, tells us the morals of society in a pre-Batman world. It's like, thanks, Batman, whoever you are. Nudge, nudge.
That'd be fantastic.
That would have made the movie much clearer. Thanks, Jenny.
I wasn't going to mention that, and your typing fingers were warming up. You were going to be like, it doesn't have to make sense because the story might not be true. Of course, his story was maudlin or lacked internal consistency or didn't have a point.
He's crazy. He's on drugs. He just got out of that. What do you want? A frickin' treatise on the understanding of human consciousness?
We don't know if he's mentally ill or not. We don't know if he's crazy or not. It's that's part of the movie. That's a big major part of the movie is that you don't know what's real and what isn't by the time that happens. Okay.
If I'm medicated all my life and all of a sudden I'm a 60-year-old guy and I'm like, what am I doing? Who am I? Like, that would freak the hell out of me. I might get a little violent.
And he has fantasies, he has delusions, he has all kinds of things, and it's shown to us and proven to us these are fantasies and delusions. So that way we can understand that maybe some things that happen in the later half of the movie don't happen at all. So it's meant to be that way. It's meant to be vague and ambiguous in some areas.
A lot of movies do that, especially with the end of Watchmen. I think that's one of the arguments against the current Watchmen show, that there should not have been a sequel. There should not have been a serialized comic book or a serialized show, because that defeats the purpose of the story. So
Alan Moore would agree.
Oh yeah, for sure. Alan Moore, I think he pretty much hates all of his work and all the people who read his work.
I'm pretty sure someone said that they put a curse on. I think the creators of the Watchmen TV show said he put a curse on him. I would actually believe that.
Yeah.
Alan Moore would probably, if magic really was his thing, and it kind of is. So I don't know. He would curse that guy in an instant. He was just, all right, they're putting on a Watchmen TV show. Let me get a list of all the people who worked on it so I can put a curse on every single one of these people. That's probably what Alan Moore's action would be.
It's strange. I don't mind the criticism. I don't like how she's. This is a strange thing for me, because what she's saying, it's like, I agree with the idea of what you're saying there, Jenny. And then it's like, you're using it wrong. You're not applying the argument properly. It's not how you would properly say that. It's like saying, hey, there's a Mary Sue. You know how you counteract a Mary Sue? You have a world of Mary Sues. Everyone's amazing. And they could all relate to each other and we can understand where they come from. Maybe there's a secret behind them where they came from, etc. It's like, oh, okay, there's an alternate dimension, da 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 da. Stupid story, but it makes sense, right? Here it's like, oh, if we only knew why he's crazy, clearly. It's like, well, he's just nuts. I mean, we have to know every single diagnoses that has been made to him over the years, so we can identify which drugs are causing him this psychosomatic behavior of on drugs, off drugs. Now he's crazy. Like, we don't need to know that. It's not that important.
It's a story invented by a madman. Or, depending upon my preference as a commenter, maybe part of the story happened and other parts didn't.
Okay, I can tell you, the story wasn't a dream. Okay, guys, it actually happened. Some of it didn't because he was making it up, but the story then shows you what didn't happen. I'm just throwing that out there. I could be wrong, because if it pulled something like I'm trying to think of all the movies where they pull the wool under your eyes or pull the rug under your eyes. Tale of Two Sisters, where you don't know if someone's real or not. Fight Club, that sort of stuff. Like then you get into really weird stuff. So I don't think that's as complicated what happens in the Joker. So.
Happen, and I can just selectively decide and keep the ones I liked and get rid of the ones I didn't, and that's how movies work now. But no, and this is what I'm talking about. This is the same thing as having the Joker outright say he's not political, and then making a movie with many implied political themes, and then also having him do a mission statement at the end. You're doing like a cop-out thing, and you're affording yourself enough deniability that if any part of the movie doesn't make sense, you can be like, well, it wasn't supposed to. But then why did you make your movie? It's disingenuous to claim that it doesn't have any point, because you made it for some reason, but like you're just afraid to commit to what it is.
Okay, so now she's saying, I believe we've lost Literature Devil again. I believe she's saying that unless the movie has a clear point, you shouldn't make your movie. Unless you have your slice of life story of a crazy man going off his medication without telling us what the point of the movie is, you shouldn't have the movie, or you shouldn't have the story. That's a very odd thing to say. Now, I'm all for clarity. I'm all for having a clear plot. But when your character, and plots come from characters, when your character is medicated and crazy and potentially has a brain tumor of some sort, clarity is not exactly the name of the game of the story. It's going to be more of an amusement ride of what's going on in this guy's head and how does he cope with whatever new reality he's shown. So it's getting a little strange. I know I'm being told to change my region. I was in Hong Kong. I don't think it's a problem with my Discord. I think it has to do with Literature Devil's internet. I think it cuts out for him once in a while because I see him jump on and off or on offline. So believe me, I've tried all kinds of different setups and servers, and I think it's primarily on his end. But that's all I can say about that.
What's the point of the framing narrative and the unreliable narrator thing? Even if we assume this whole movie was a delusion or like willfully made up by the Joker.
But it's not a delusion. He does have delusions, and in the movie they showcase which ones are. Like his relationship, I believe, with one of his tenants in the same building. So those are shown in the story as not real. So makes sense. We're third-person omniscient perspective. We're not being lied to like in Fight Club or A Tale of Two Sisters. We know what's going on, and then it's shown to us that that was a lie or that was in his head. That's totally fine.
Does that inform us of something in his worldview or like give us new insight into the story? That might have even been an interesting framing narrative if they set it up earlier or like did cutaways to it where he's talking to the therapist, Princess Bride style, and then maybe through
Princess Bride style, is she referring to the frame narrative where we have Fred Savage and what's his name? Oh, Peter Falk, and it's just the frame, and then it goes into the actual story of the Princess Bride, and it comes back once in a while. That would be interesting. I don't think it needs to be that complicated a narrative to do that, and that's usually used for a particular message to have the two layered stories working in tandem. Like one's real, one's a fantasy, or one's happening in the past, one's happening in the present, but not essential. It's a technique, but it does unless she's going to give me a good argument why it's not necessary.
The telling of the story, you can get some kind of hint of maybe what would compel the Joker to make it up, like what his motives are, what
His motive is he's crazy, he has no control, and he's trying to cope with reality. He's fantasizing about a better world. That's what you do when you have daydreams and any other kinds of dreams. And he's on such strong meds, and he's so repressed that he's able to generate these fantasies. Okay? That's as complicated as it has to be. I can't say that's exactly what happens in the movie, but there's nothing wrong with introducing those elements. Now, I don't personally like it when, for example, in The Tale of Two Sisters, you don't know what's going on with the sisters because it's kind of this odd, unnecessary level of communication between the two and the other people in the house. And you're like, okay, why are they so weird around her or them? That is the level I don't like because for 80% of the movie, you don't know why this is. It's a mystery. Kind of like with Fight Club. Like those scenes, once you look at them, it's like this could never have happened if there was only one person in the room. There had to have been two people. Brad Pitt's character casts a shadow. We're not seeing it from the perspective of the protagonist. We're seeing it from the camera. So we have a third-person omniscient view. That's the kind of lying I don't know. But they reveal it that this could have happened, and they sort of replay those scenes where he punches himself and he shoots himself. It's like, okay, could work, could be possible. But it's how it's done. It's how the lie is played, how it's rendered on the screen, and how it's revealed that it is a lie. That's where all the details come into play. So until you actually see the movie and critique, was that a fake scene, or was it all in his head? Can he do that? Were the medications he's on were they stimulants? A stimulant will cause you to have hallucinations, or some actual hallucinogenic drugs will do that. So that could be explained if it's done properly, of course. So I'm pretty critical of those sorts of, this is all a dream, or this particular scene was a dream. But when you have a crazy person with a potential brain tumor who's on medication, I think you've covered some bases at least to make it believable. Whoop, I just lost my place. Let me go back there.
like a slap in the face to find out he's either malicious or crazy and it's not true. But instead, the rest of it's so unfocused, you're just kind of like, okay. Like, for example, if the Joker's actions had followed some kind of internal logic and they had been presented in a way where they seemed to us to make sense in his very specific situation, like, oh, he was a victim of circumstance. Oh, he's just misunderstood.
He is a victim of getting medicated all his life and being lied to. You know, again, you'd have to look at the specific kinds of drugs and what exactly he was doing that caused him to have these hallucinations and why. But that would be logically consistent with the narrative so that we understand why he's thinking the way he is. Does he like the person? Does he not like the person? Does he think he's a nice person? Is his mom being nice? Is his mom trying to protect him, etc.? So there has to be a reason for these things to happen.
He had no choice. And the movie's totally taken you in, like you're really feeling for the Joker. Then at the end, you're like, oh, he really pulled the wool over our eyes. But it's talking to a therapist and it's ambiguous as to whether or not the whole movie happened. Aha!
I think LiteratureDevil is back. Let's try again. All right. I'm going to connect to Singapore. Let's try Singapore. All right. Are you there, my friend? Still connecting. He's there, he's just not connected yet. Da, 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 da. We only have a few minutes left. Yeah, he's getting there. Da-dee-da-dee-da. Well, let's just keep going. He'll come back eventually.
The Joker. Then at the end, you're like, oh, it really doesn't matter. I guess it was a cool last line. I mean, I can't begrudge it that. It was a cool last line. This movie actually had a lot of cool lines, like just good one-liners. But also, most of them were in the trailer. The trailers had better music, too. I guess that's my review, is like, if you saw the trailers and you were intrigued, then like, just rewatch the trailers.
There we
It's a
go.
better experience.
Hello. Okay. Yeah. She's having a rambling good time, and I'm trying to match all her points. It's like, Jesus, like, the story pretty much explained that he was on drugs, he has a brain tumor, and then he went off drugs and he was being lied to all his life. And she wanted to
That's
know,
mostly true, yeah.
yeah, and she wanted to have the the clarity that some scenes were in his head and some weren't, and why, which implies you have to know the specific medication, the specific motivation for what he was fantasizing about, and what that meant. And it's
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
yeah, I mean, you can go into detail, but if you're crazy and you're on drugs and you have a brain tumor, you got some free reign there. You could think some crazy thoughts and be like, yeah, okay, he's crazy. Yep. So that was pretty much, she talked for the past 3 minutes. I'm like, oh, this is not not a good argument.
I wouldn't imagine so.
Experience than watching the whole movie. Doesn't take as long. It's free. It's fine. But if you're like me and you just like to sit in the safety of your own car and eat movie theater popcorn, then like knock yourself out.
Because
that
you
was
want to
it.
get shot by themselves.
Yeah, she has to go to a drive-through.
Oh, that was terrible. Everyone was right and said, well, this is a cringe fest. And then she had a terrible take. Mala was right. She had a terrible take on the movie. I don't think there was only like a few points that she got right. And they're just, they're pretty obvious. Like Joaquin Phoenix being a great actor.
It's kind of like if you went to like a writer's corner or, I don't know, a creative writing class, and you didn't stay for the class, but you read the notes. And they taught you how to criticize, but she didn't actually know how to criticize. She just took the notes and like, oh yeah, okay, criticize clarity and plot and themes and
I'm
go.
not going to be too hard on it because I don't think it was meant to be that shocking of a twist, but they have that reveal
is
midway
this her
through where they find
bloopers?
out that all of the Joker's dates with Sophie have
Okay, I think we're done with this. I think
Yeah,
we're done with
no,
this video.
this was a very not unintelligent, but just inapplicable technique to criticism, and that's based off the things she was saying and how she was saying them. What she said was fine, meaning, oh, I'm going to critique the theme, or I'm going to critique the pacing, or whatever it was. It's just how she did it that didn't make sense. Like, she wanted clarity when clarity wasn't necessary for a story about a guy who isn't clear, who does not have a clear understanding, who is medicated, etc. So that's kind of obvious. And if she doesn't like those stories, then it's like, well, why are you watching it? It's
Maybe this movie wasn't made for you.
if it's a story about a guy
That's
who
the argument.
who's really down on his luck, who doesn't have many talents or skills, being lied to all his life, is heavily medicated, apparently has a brain tumor.
He's brain damaged. He doesn't have a brain tumor.
Yeah,
because it's explained that he was brain damaged because he was in an abusive home and his
Okay.
mother's boyfriend beat him senseless.
Like, to
That's
me,
how you get brain
that
damage.
sounds like an interesting character just in general. So
Yeah.
maybe that's not the movie for her. Maybe that's not the story for her. And I can totally understand that, because not everyone wants to read about broken, damaged people that lead a somewhat sheltered or protected life, or a lied to life. But
Yeah, from what I can tell, the only reason she doesn't like it is because it didn't go out of its way to tell her everything step by step and tell her how to live her life. Just stick to Marvel movies and tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah, so
very simple, very straightforward.
if we could like explain how to criticize, let's say, plot, or why you can use the elements of mental illness to showcase the dream world, or to showcase things that aren't real, it's like, great. Yeah, you can do that in a movie. That's why a movie like Fight Club kind of works, even though I give it partial points, because there's a lot of scenes in Fight Club where it's like, this could not have worked with one person. You needed two people.
Yeah, you need two people.
But they show some of them to sit like a flashback, and it's like, oh no, he's actually shooting himself, or he's actually punching himself, that sort of thing. Like, I cannot imagine him, doing all those things by himself in every scenario. So there has to be some give and take there, but at least they tried to wipe their own ass.
Yeah.
With this, she's like, well, why didn't they do any of that? It's like, he's crazy, he's drugged, he's angry, he's emotional, he's violent. And
Yeah, it's not like it's not even an excuse like they use the Force nowadays. Well, no, it's just the Force. The Force did it, or Wizard did it, or whatever that is.
Right.
It's an essential, integral part of the movie that he is not mentally stable. He's not mentally normal, and it's a core part of this movie. They made it so.
that is interesting, because they can't fall back on technology or mysticism or magic. It's a contemporary story of a guy on drugs. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And he happens to be in this weird scenario of his life with his mom. And his mom is the one with the mental issues, and she's causing him to be the way he is, aside from all the other problems in his life. I like characters who have lots and lots and lots of flaws. Okay?
That's Arthur Fleck. That's Arthur Fleck.
Those are the best kinds of stories because you really get to the core of the humanity of those characters. And if Arthur Fleck had zero flaws, and he started shooting people, you'd be really confused as to why and how he was motivated to do that. It's like a Fall from Grace or Riches to Rags. That's the kind of story it would have been, but it's not. It's pretty much down and down and down, and then there's a little bit of individualism, a little independence. I'm free. I'm empowered, and that's where it sort of goes, and that's it. Doesn't elevate him too far, but it brings him up higher than
there's
he
a
was
little
before.
section of hope.
Yes.
There's a little section of hope in there, and the hope though is his delusions. The hope that he gets he has a delusion where he becomes like this respected comic. He gets a girlfriend. All this stuff kind of happens to him all at once, and it's mostly all fake. It turns out that it's mostly all fake, especially the girlfriend part. But what doesn't happen to be fake is the fact that he gets invited to the talk show that he always wanted to be on. That one isn't fake. But it's only because because he was so terrible at comedy that they invite him on the show.
Right. Well, I think that was an okay wrap. I gotta say, I like her technique. I just don't like how she applied her technique. Wish we could talk to her. Of course, she's way too big for me and or yourself to get on one of our channels and talk about the
She has an army at her back. She has every weirdo
really? Okay.
at her back. So
I don't.
She's Jack Saint. She's got Linkara.
Really?
She's running to her defense to hate on Mahler because he dared include this video in his stream.
Yeah. How dare Mahler do his lifestyle of, being on YouTube? How dare he? It's like, oh, he was on for 4 hours. He was on for 5 hours. Wow. He's spending his afternoon entertaining other people. 11 hours. Oh my God. How dare he? Like I remember watching the Red Letter Media criticism of the movie. They seem to enjoy it. The thing I like about Red Letter Media is Jay is like the movie aficionado, like expert. He loves every kind of movie. And then you have Mike, who's like the geek. He's like I'm the Star Trek guy, but I just like also watching movies in general. And there's a nice sort of like Mike is the kind of like the generic. Oh yeah, I would watch this because it's entertaining. And Jay would be like, I wouldn't watch this because it's not, my kind of horror story. And I like Heath Ledger, Joker better or whatever. It's that sort of, you get those two ranges of geekdom, I guess. Eventually I'll see the movie just because there's a big clamor about it, but.
I found it great. I personally found it great. Like I said, it's not objectively great, but if you're in the right mindset, if you're looking for that sort of movie, then I think you'll enjoy it. Like it's an American Psycho, Bret Easton Ellis combined with Scorsese kind of movie.
Sounds cool. Okay. Well, thanks guys for listening. That was a good 2 hours and 12 minutes. That was pretty good. Check out the link in the description to LiteratureDevil's. I believe your campaign's still going on strong, isn't it?
Yes, it still has we are currently at 15,300. It's kind of slowed down, but we still have about 22 days left.
Okay, sounds
for
good.
Dr. Alpha Miracle Child. It's going to be about 80 to 100 page comic. And I recently released something that people might be, 21 days left. But any backer who backs this campaign will also get a digital copy of, let me see, it's the Lady Midnight, The Jolly Goodbye, a noir style superhero short. And you'll have the digital copy. We're planning for every backer to have a digital copy of that by Christmas. So you have something to enjoy while you wait for the main course to be served.
Not bad. Sounds like a good deal. Well, thanks guys for listening. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy.